right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Goffstown School Board. I call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. If you can all rise and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I did the same thing, Heather.
It was always in the back corner. It got moved. All right, so we're going to start tonight with correspondence.
This evening I have a memo that Mr. Talbot prepared. I'd like to thank him for his hard work in working with the planning board. This is in pertaining to the new development on Route 114 right by the Shell station. I would certainly welcome Mr. Talbot to share his remarks, but the board can see he sent the memo in, has given input as we've discussed, so that's included. And we also included an update. This is an article that Mrs. Moran and I both found pretty interesting that continues to look at school funding. So it's always great to see so many wonderful people that are here tonight. I hope everybody cares as much about school funding and the challenges that we continue to experience, the inequities that the state of New Hampshire continues to structurally provide for how we pay for education in this state. And this is another example of an article that continues to share that information.
Great.
And that's it tonight.
Thank you, Brian. Accommodations, good news. Lil, welcome back.
Hi, thank you. So obviously I don't have much because the school year hasn't started, but we have had our first student council meeting. Open house is tomorrow for all new students, 1 to 3, and student ambassadors are going to be here giving tours to new students and their parents. I would like to congratulate Ari Grazone for the first goal scored in varsity soccer this year. And field hockey is doing their annual fundraiser, so be on the lookout for that. They're selling mugs. They're really gorgeous. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else? Accommodations, good news? Go ahead, Wendy.
I'll just add a couple of things, Heather. So we had over 120 students that were involved in our ESY programs. That's not only our identified students, but some of our students who needed intervention over the summer. That's Glen Lake right up. We also, as you remember, we had a Beyond School Enrichment grant that we applied for and were able to get. So we had 21 freshmen involved in a photography camp this summer here at Goffstown High School, 16 involved in graphic arts, 24 that were involved in a sports leadership camp, and that included getting CPR and AED certified, about 35 that were involved in theater camp, and we had over 40 kids involved in our robotics program, which was held over at Mountain View. So pretty proud of the amount of kids that came in over the summer. Awesome. Bartlett also was very thankful to have some freshmen from St. A's that came in, about 30 of them, and did an outside beautification project for them for their freshman service day. So we're really thankful for our fantastic relationship with St. A's. And just overall, our schools look fantastic. Our custodial crew has just done a phenomenal job getting ready for the first day of school. So a special shout out to all of them.
Great, thank you, Wendy. Anyone else? Go ahead, Ginny.
I was able to go to the musical that the students put on this summer. It was awesome. Our auditorium wasn't ready yet, so they went over to Bedford. Bedford kindly loaned their auditorium for the night, and it was a lot of fun. Also, I would like to thank Diane Hathaway in the library for her summer reading program that she does every year, and encouraging the kids to read during the summer after school's out. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ginny. Anyone else? Accommodations, good news? Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, just a quick thank you to Mountain View as well for hosting that STEM and robotics camp. My boys both participated. The teachers did a wonderful job. They were building bridges out of sticks and testing the weight. They were shooting off rockets. They were doing a whole lot of fun stuff. My kids are not easy to amuse, and they came home excited about what they did every day. So thank you very much to Mountain View and the teachers that put on that program.
Thank you, Nicole. Anyone else? Go ahead, Scott.
Facilities was thanked. I also want to thank our IT staff. I think this was probably one of the busiest summers for IT since I've been here. And I know Steve Borchett and his team really busted their tails with so many projects, whether it be Wi-Fi, density to access control projects. They did a tremendous amount of work at our facilities all across the district. So can't thank Steve and his folks enough. They truly cranked out so much this summer. I want to thank him and his team.
Awesome, thank you, Scott.
Can I just forget one more thing?
Yeah.
Also, we found out this month that Andy Pishka was named New Hampshire History Teacher of the Year, so a special shout out to Mr. Pishka. He's an incredible teacher.
You
So
guys
we're
are
very
taking all
fortunate.
my superintendent.
I'm
from me.
sorry. I'm sorry.
About
It was
5
good
things I
news.
can cross off the list.
There you go. Anyone else, commendations, good news? All right, seeing none. So the next is public comment. I'm assuming some of you would like to come up and speak, so I'm just going to go over our policy and expectations. Raise a hand, I can call you up. You come up to a microphone and state your name and address clearly for the minutes. We ask that you keep your statement about 3 minutes long. This is not an answer and question dialogue, and we ask you to be respectful. So whoever likes to start, make yourself, come on up.
No, we're not giving, if you have handouts, you can leave them on the table. We're happy to take them at the end.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jessica Green, and I live at 44A Morgan Circle in Goffstown, New Hampshire. I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to Miss Jessica Milligan of Mountain View Middle School on Friday afternoon due to some of the concerns I have as a parent. As mentioned during the summer reading, my child had decided to read Answers in the Pages by David Levithan. I don't know how to say his last name. She had told me she did not want to read this. I did not understand why, and eventually she had told me, after some argument with a 5th grader, she said it's because it's about 2 gay boys. And I was kind of concerned, so I decided to go through the book and take a look, and I was very surprised at some of the things that I was reading about how the book was not to be shown, and how, you know, once the mother figured out what was going on, the boys were very upset, yada, yada, yada. So I'm sure you can read the book yourself, but it was very concerning that that was part of a 5th and 6th grade level reading. My second concern was about a whiteboard that I saw during the open house last week. It was for the guidance counselor corner, I believe, and it was about, it was about gender identity versus orientation. As we know in the news and everything, it's a very controversial topic. I personally believe that that information should be shared between the minor and the parent, not the school. So I believe it raises a lot of concerns, and I'm trying not to go over. So my child was bullied in 3rd and 4th grade at Bartlett Elementary. So she is coming into Mountain View already upset. Is she going to be bullied? She bought a specific backpack to ensure that if she was bullied, it would not come off. So she's aware of the whiteboard that she saw, and she was concerned, and she's like, I don't know nothing about pronouns. And I think a child coming in who's already nervous does not need the added stress of pronouns. And again, that's something that is my job to teach my child if she wants to know about it, and not a teacher. And lastly, there was transgender flags that were displayed in a school counselor's office and on the whiteboard. I do not believe it is the school's job to explain what a transgender flag is. If anyone wants to be, part of a group, or, wants to feel united, that is why we have the United States flag. It's red, white, and blue for a reason, and I feel that that is the only flag that should be flown, because that equals equality between all kids. Over.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else like to come up and speak?
These handouts are what she's referring to, so if anyone wants to see them after, they are here. Perfect, thank you.
Did he work, does this work?
It works more for the people
The TV?
watching.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, use your mom's voice
Okay.
so she can hear you.
If you could speak up a little, because there's a vent
Yes.
over
Yeah.
here that
Yep.
makes it hard for
Will
us
do.
this corner.
Okay. My name is Representative Lisa Mazer. I'm at 39 Shirley Park Road in Goffstown. I come before you tonight because myself and other state reps were copied on a letter from a concerned Goffstown parent in relation to the gender identity versus orientation information displayed on Mountain View Middle School's library whiteboard, as well as a particular book recommendation sent out on the summer reading list. As you can see tonight, other parents are concerned about this as well. Children are called dependents for a reason, and it's up to the parents if they want this kind of information presented to their middle school age children. It's not up to the school to guide children into these conversations, and many parents see this as overreach. One parent mentioned to me that their child was confused because in one class, they are being taught that the word they is grammatically used to refer to groups of 2 or more people, and they're being graded accordingly if they get it wrong. And in the next breath, they're being told to refer to a lone peer as they, and if they don't, they will be written up for hate speech. Can you imagine how confusing this is for kids, for young kids? And then we wonder why they're depressed and anxious. Most children at this age are not emotionally, intellectually, or morally able to handle these conversations, and it's not the school's responsibility to decide that they are. Before anyone who is watching this proceeds to go on one of their town pages to call these parents bigots, transphobes, hateful, etc., keep in mind these parents simply want to be the ones that decide when the time is right to have these conversations with their kids. They want their children to be able to read and write and think for themselves. They don't want the teachers in schools stepping outside of their lanes and doing the thinking for them. Let the children be children. Parents, if you are watching, have frequent check-in conversations about what's being taught or presented on at school. Let your child know that it's safe for them to talk with you about anything. If you are uncomfortable, parents, with anything that is being taught or presented to your minor children at school, please let your state representatives know. It's crucial for parents to familiarize themselves with their rights under the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, PPRA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and the free speech protections under our First Amendment that protect students from compelled speech. This means the school cannot force your child to affirm certain ideology, and you can opt your children out of invasive surveys and course material you are uncomfortable with. Lastly, if this display is not taken down before the start of the 2023-24 school term, I will send these photos and the right to know information we receive from the school on to the Education Commissioner for review. These parents are saying enough is enough, and I am too. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you coming up?
Yes, hi. Hi there. I don't
Hi.
have a fancy speech. My
That's
name's
okay.
Jean Philibot. I've been in Goffstown for approximately 37 years. I live on 86 Moset Ave. My mother was born here. My father-in-law was born here, so I have very strong roots in this community. I love Goffstown. I just want to let you people know that I agree with Representative Mazer and the lady that spoke before. My children have gone through the school system. We didn't have to deal with anything like that in those days. And I think school is hard enough for these kids in middle school because their bodies are changing, the transition is going on, they're going from, grammar school to middle school. They've got enough going on, and the teachers do too, without this other stuff. They need to learn arithmetic, science, history. The gender ideology, you cannot claim to know what a person's private beliefs are, so how can any teacher be able to teach something like that. When you don't know a parent personally, you can't know if there's 1,200 kids in the school, you can't know every single parent and what they believe. So this does not belong in our schools. Please get it out. I urge you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our official public policy recommendation to the superintendent to. Yep, that's our official public
Can we start with
policy.
your name and address?
Sorry,
Brian.
Nancy Peterman, 140 Byam Road, New Boston. So that's our official notice about our disagreement with policy and information that is being put out at the school. So it came to my attention that there was a bulletin board that is in public view of every child at Mountain View Middle School that contains controversial information. Based on what was posted, I request that the school board follow its own policies and have this bulletin board material taken down before the first day of school, and that all other principals and administrators check their buildings for the same controversial content and have it removed before the start of the school year on September 6th. According to your own policy on employee-student relations, staff members will not attempt to counsel, assess, diagnose, or treat a student's personal problem relating to sexual behavior, substance abuse, mental or physical health, and/or family relationships, but instead should refer the student to the appropriate individual or agency for assistance. So again, this bulletin board should not be out there in public view. This is not the guidance counselor's ability to assist in this situation. I also have another concern as to why parents and guardians are not part of this notification. Are parents being notified if a student comes to a guidance counselor or teacher or staff member with these questions about gender or any other concerns? Is Goffstown District keeping secrets from parents? And again, as I said, guidance counselors and staff members are not licensed or certified to be having these discussions with minors. Yes, we realize that controversial topics will come up in discussion in the classroom. It is the responsibility of the teacher to use classroom management skills to stop the conversation by simply stating, we don't talk about that topic in this classroom. There used to be a line. Teachers never used to cross that line. They're crossing it all the time now. That needs to stop. No further discussion needs to be had, as according to your policy about teaching controversial issues, and that it needs to be in part of the curriculum. As far as I know, gender identity is not part of our curriculum. The information posted on this bulletin board is not part of the curriculum. It's an ideology that is being pushed by certain groups, and according to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, it gives protection to children from compelled speech. In this bulletin board, it's compelling the students to use certain pronouns. You cannot force a child to affirm a certain ideology. This bulletin board compels students to talk a certain way that is not acceptable in all families. And clearly, you have a large group of families here that would like this to stop. You also have a staff ethics policy that said to avoid using their position for personal gain through political, social, religious, economic, or other influence. Why do staff members need to discuss this topic with minors? What is their personal gain? We have school districts in the United States where staff members are recruiting students into this ideology. Please be sure that this is not happening in Goffstown. I just received a text message before this meeting that in Newmarket, the middle schoolers were asked on their first day of school, what are their pronouns? That's not acceptable. And going to your flag policy, the only flag that should be displayed at school is the American flag and the New Hampshire state flag.
Can you wrap it up, please?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
And if you look at your own flag policies and procedures, there is only reference to the American flag and the New Hampshire state flag. All other flags should be removed from classrooms and offices. You promote the PBIS program where children are taught to be safe, respectful, and responsible. I don't think students that have the belief that there are only two genders feel safe, respected, or have adults that are being responsible to their beliefs at Mountain View Middle School. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, my name is Donna Bernard. I live at 65 Riverview Park Road. I am a lifelong resident of Goffstown. I graduated from Goffstown High School. I've been here a long time, but I've been here a long time, and I can remember in the late 90s, for those of you that have been here for a long time, you probably remember, that Goffstown High School had the reputation, or actually a nickname, of Suicide High. We had a slew of suicides that were taking our kids. It was a contagion. And genderqueer theory wasn't even around at that time, but it was a contagion. What you don't know is that there was a citizen in town who no longer lives here. His name was Doug Tunney, and he was an assistant pastor at a church in Bedford, and he got a group of people together. I wasn't there. I didn't know about it till after it was done. But he got a group of people together, and they marched around this building praying that the suicides would stop. And the suicides stopped. It was heartbreaking. But it was over. The contagion was over. I also have been around long enough to remember a time when there was a group of people who were pro-life that parked their vehicles and got out with big, large posters of the remains of abortions ripped apart and stood at the bottom of Tibbetts Hill so that every kid from the middle school who drove by in a bus saw these pictures. And at the time, Rose Colby was the principal of Mountain View Middle School, and I remember how distraught she was and how she said she understands why people feel like the need to bring up that side of the argument, but that she didn't think those pictures were appropriate for middle school students to be confronted with in the morning before going to school. And maybe she was right. But when people feel like their arguments are not being heard and that their children are only getting one side, they're going to do things in order to make sure that the opposite side of that argument is heard. Even if that means large graphic pictures of botched surgeries for trans kids. Or the fact that the suicide rate of kids who actually go through puberty blockers and surgeries is still high. Those facts don't get out. And there's going to be people who care enough to make sure that if this is going to end up being shoved down the throats of all the kids in the public school, then the opposite argument is going to be heard in one way, shape, or form. And then we hit the news. I'm asking you, please, keep SAU 19 out of it. Just stay out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. How many more people would like to speak after this gentleman? Okay, 3 more? 4 more?
Hi, my
5?
name is Anthony Smelt. I live at
Okay.
95 Henry Bridge Road in Goffstown. I just have one question. Who okayed this? I have a show of hand at the school board
This
here.
is not a question and answer, sir.
Oh, it's not?
No. This is just for public comment. You filed the right to know. You filed the right to know, so those processes will happen.
Okay. Well, I just want to know who okayed this, but, you know, if y'all don't want to say, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so we have 5 people who had their hands up. So go ahead in the front.
My name is Katie Tamoris. I live at 58 Church Street in Goffstown. I have a daughter that will be attending Mountain View Middle School this fall for the first time. I took a tour with my husband and daughter in June, and we walked around the school and didn't notice any pronoun board like these or flags. I was happy about that. I thought, okay, they are keeping that away from our young kids' eyes, and it set my mind at ease bringing my daughter to public school for the middle school. Then last week, I was shocked when I saw pictures that a parent took visiting the school for an open house. Was I being deceived the first time? Did they take down the stuff the first time around so it wasn't easily seen? The middle school in itself is such a challenging time for young minds. Kids are confused enough at this age. There is zero need for more confusion. I don't want my daughter to know this vocabulary. She doesn't need to know what non-binary means or transgender. She's 10 years old. If none of this was talked about, How many of those do you think would actually claim to be a different gender in middle school? You are planting seeds in young children's minds and giving them false information. Society is the one that is confusing them. You as educators are failing them. You are not doctors, you are not psychologists, you are educators. And when did that change? You went to school because you love our children and you love teaching education, teaching them the correct way to use pronouns. I want the board taken down. I want the flags and the pins to go away, and I want to get back to education. The reasons why we send our kids to school and entrust them with you is to provide them education. This isn't college where they're taking sociology classes, psychology classes. It's middle school, and it's time that it starts acting like it. And lastly, I don't want anything that I say to be misconstrued on how I feel towards people. I'm a child of God. I love people. I'm commanded to love people. Although some will see what I say as hateful, I assure you that it's not. My heart breaks for this world, and it breaks for our children. As adults, if you choose to do what you wish with whomever you wish, that is your choice. However, as minors, we, the parents, have the right to raise our children how we want. The parents have the right to speak up about what is being taught and shown in our public schools. And that is what we're all doing here tonight, standing up for our kids because we love them and will do whatever it takes to protect their innocent minds. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Valley. I live at 12 Shirley Park Road in Goffstown. I came here tonight as a mother and a taxpayer. I never imagined our society has come to the point that I have to question the decisions of our educators and what the decisions they are making for our children. It was brought to my attention there is questionable sexual material lining the room of Mountain View Middle School Guidance Counselor office, and these are the pictures that I saw as well. Mountain View Middle School is made up of 5th through 8th graders. In my humble opinion, 5th graders are mostly prepubescent and visit the guidance counselor's office for a multitude of reasons. Having this material on the wall may confuse them and is not appropriate for that age. This information should not be accessible to young children, and I consider 5th graders young children. And for it to be so bold and in the forefront is really insulting to the parents in this community. It's up to us as parents and caregivers to discuss what we feel is appropriate with our children when it comes to anything sexual in nature. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, I know you had your hand up. Hello.
Does the school board believe in air conditioning? Because it's kind of warm in here.
It is a little warm in
Cut
here.
out of the budget, Keith. Tough budget year.
My name is Keith Hammond, and I live in New Boston. I served on the New Boston School Board about a decade ago. So I've been in this room many times before, and I know how much time and effort it takes to be on a school board. I'm in my 4th term as a state representative for New Boston, and constituents asked me to be here tonight. So I'll give you my thoughts, as a lawmaker and also as a taxpayer in New Boston. Personally, I don't think this is age appropriate for a middle school. This pushing back, this isn't the status quo. I think we could all agree that this is something new, that certain people are sort of pushing on the rest of society. If these flyers were printed on a school computer with school ink, that came out of our wallets. That's part of our taxpayer money. So I think we should have a say on what's happening here. You may have heard of the Divisive Concepts Bill. That was my bill. And that is now law. And that came about because certain people, not a lot of teachers, but a few, were segregating children based on their race. And they were pushing an ideology that if you have a certain skin tone, you should feel guilty for how you're being born, how you were born. And if you have a different skin tone, you should feel that you're being oppressed. So the law corrected that. You'll hear mischaracterizations of that law in the media, but it is to have a colorblind society, colorblind educational environment, and that is not the law. It was difficult to push back against that because you get attacked for having views that people will mischaracterize, that they think you are somehow bigoted. This is a similar situation where gender identity, the idea that you can wishfully think yourself to be a different gender, and you can sacrifice your body with hormones and surgery to make that wish come true. I characterize that as a religious ideology. That's a religion more than it is a scientific ideology. Now, some of you on the board may agree with me secretly, and it's difficult to say your opinion in public. But I ask you, find it within yourself to find the right balance with this issue so that it doesn't spread, to the rest of the faculty and staff, the people that have the best interests of the community at heart. There are a very small segment of our society that want to push this on the rest of us, and they do so in a way that makes it difficult for us to push back. But if you do it with, clarity of thought and good conscience, you can do that. So I ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Is there anyone else? Was there someone else that wanted to? Sir, you wanted to speak? And ma'am? Okay, so you two will be the last. Go ahead. Oh, and you in the hat? Okay.
What's that?
There is a gentleman back there that raised his hand as well.
My name is Kyle Franco. I live at 44 Janus Drive. A lot of comment tonight on the LGBTQ stuff, so I'm going to pivot and talk about why you should be listening to these parents and why their opinions matter so much within our school district. I want to transfer back to I believe it was the School Fairness Project that came in. Absolute trash presentation that was presented with the only idea of state capital to pay for our children. It was literally laced with, I don't want to inconvenience the taxpayer. I don't know how you can not inconvenience the taxpayer and implement an income tax, any sort of state tax on goods to increase our school funding, mind you, how that doesn't affect us. We pay 70% or more of the school budget. The school money should come from us, okay? The reason you guys don't want the more money from us and you want more money from the state is simple. It's called EFAs, Education Freedom Accounts, which hold you guys more accountable day by day because it puts charter schools in to take your money. We get to take our money back. So by you guys not wanting to raise our property taxes because you're so kind, really what it does is it just takes more money that they can't take and send their kids to charter schools because they don't like the education that they're receiving here. Right? That's what it really does at the end of the day. And that's why you don't want to tax the Goffstown residents, but you'd like to take it to the state level. It's a cute idea to redirect the talking points I've been in New Hampshire for probably 15 years through the DNC. Every DNC politician that comes through here, it's income tax, state tax, we need more tax, we need more tax. I have news for you. New Hampshire's the lowest tax burden in the nation, and we crush it here. We crush it when there's a recession. We still do better than everyone, and it's because of our low tax burden. We feel that tax burden locally for a reason, because we want input on what happens. And that's why when this crap happens and parents get pissed, you get more people pulling their kids from your school and sending them to charter schools, right? It's funny because you guys want children from Hooksett to come here so you can take the pay, right? But you don't want more developments because you really don't want more kids in the school. It's an interesting dichotomy you have here. And honestly, it starts from the leadership down, Bulky. You presided over the tax fraud case that was here amongst the school board. You presided over banning us all from being in this room during COVID. You banned us from the meeting in which you voted on us going back to COVID. So quite frankly, leadership issues seem to be the issue, whether it be principals or other figureheads. I think we need more accountability, and I think we need to position ourselves so that kids want to come to the school and not pull their kids from it with their tax dollars. So I urge you to think of that, because parents are getting more control, and they will continue. Every single year, it increases how many kids are doing EFAs. It will continue to increase because our public school system is trash, because we focus on gender ideology instead of academics. Every year, the inclusion programs, whether it be bullying, how you manage your anger, whatever it is, it's all going to get absorbed, and gender ideology is going to become one with it. We all see it. We all know it's coming. And I'm asking you to get ahead of it instead of being behind it. Because if you don't want 10 people like me talking up here, stop the BS and we won't be here. It's really that freaking simple. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. All right, 2 more. The lady in the purple and the man in the blue shirt. Hello.
Good evening. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Karen Manasca. I live at 22 Rochambeau Street, otherwise known as Pinardville, or Western, I call it Western Manchester. But anyway, I've lived here for 27 years. My children are grown. I have grandchildren in the state. And I'm concerned. I'm very concerned because I hope that what this is staff being concerned about our children. That's my hope. But I think it's misdirected. And I believe that these children are coming to you and they're trusting you. So anything that's up on the board like that is going to be something that is they're going to take in. And my concern is that this is way over their heads and their grade level. I am a retired occupational therapist, and I love teachers because y'all put so much passion into what you do. And so I want to make sure that our students have the ability to be able to read and write and do math and be able to be successful citizens in our world. And with this is just a division. It's a dividing thing. It's not age appropriate even. It's not even age appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, sir, you can come down. And you'll be the last one. Oh, two more. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Brenda French, 15 Lampson Ave, Goffstown. I don't like to get up in front of people. This is not my deal. But when I feel strongly about something, not only am I going to come out and speak, others that may not feel comfortable will come out and speak too. And we don't want to do this, but this is important. I have a grandson who attends Mountain View. He's going to be in 7th grade this year. Nice, well-adjusted child, and we've taught him to be kind to everyone. I was shocked as well to see this stuff going up in our great town. I didn't think we'd have to get to this point where we feel the need to do this as we all, handle our own children and grandchildren. Teachers need to stick to teaching students the grammar and pronouns that the rest of us learned. They are not interchangeable, these pronouns. They are what they are. You cannot own a pronoun that is not applicable to yourself. And we are doing our kids and grandkids a great disservice to affirm that. Let the tomboys be tomboys and the boys that are effeminate, if that's their nature. We grew up in a world like that, and it's fine. It's fine. Don't let them make any decisions before they know what's going on. And that's what's happening, is things are being pushed on children before they even know. I have a niece that this has happened to. I'm very upset about that. I just think she was very shy and someone got to her and now she's a they, them. So There are more teachers and staff against this agenda, but the few loud ones are the ones pushing it through. The conservative ones will not speak up. They're afraid they're going to lose their jobs, basically. And people and good teachers are quitting because of it. So we can't continue this path. I respectfully request removing this information, leaving it out of the middle school, not just for this year, forever. We don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi. Frank Hobbs, 119 Dana Park Road, Goffstown, New Hampshire. Rhetorical question. How would you feel if your taxes funded someone teaching your child something you diametrically opposed? How would you feel about that? Well, we've got a room full of them tonight. I have a 5-year-old daughter. I'm very concerned about her future, her education, her guidance. I believe a teacher should teach academics per their job description. I do not believe teachers should indoctrinate. I believe parents should guide their children according to their beliefs, especially with controversial topics like this. The burning question at really the center of this issue is who should be teaching children about issues like gender identity and sexuality. I'm a firm believer that the parents should. This is outside of the scope of teachers, in my opinion. When you look at the public school teacher's job description, that should be pretty clear. This is usurping a portion from the parent who's created, nurtured, fed, provided for, and protected their child. When we look at gender ideology, this case of how somebody can magically choose what gender they are. In no place in medicine is placating somebody with a medical condition or dysphoria helpful. You never see this with schizophrenics. You wouldn't tell somebody that the voices in their head are real when they're really not. Anybody know anybody with anorexia? The worst thing you could do is tell them they're doing great, they look great. First thing is you identify the issue so you can actually treat it or work with it in whatever fashion you choose. This billboard shouldn't be displayed anywhere in a public setting where our public dollars are funding. And I hope you feel the same way.
Thank you, Frank. So I'm going to close public comment unless there's someone that really would like to speak. I will allow one more person to come up.
Are you going to have questions and answers?
No, no questions and answers during public comment, sir.
So like, when can I have questions and answers with the school board that we pay for?
We don't do public comment questions and answers per our policy. If you have questions, you can call the SAU.
Where can I find the answer? If I'm paying taxes here and my kids go to school, and I don't want them to see that, I want to talk to the people who's in charge of the school system.
Well, you have notified the board, and you can talk to your administrator of that school. The superintendent is aware of everything that's happening. This is all new to the board, and we need to discuss.
I was just trying to find out who okayed that as content is what all my question was.
I don't have an answer for you. So I am closing public comment. We appreciate all of you coming out tonight and speaking. Thank you very much. We have a meeting to finish. You're more than welcome to stay. Or if you do leave, if you could do it quietly and quickly, because we are on TV. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing us.
Heather?
Yes. Oh, Ellen?
I appreciate all these people being here.
Yes.
As grandparent of 2 kids going into Mountain View. Okay. Mr. Balke, are you aware of this issue and have you done anything about it?
I'm not prepared to talk about this.
We're not discussing this
So
right now, Ellen.
if-
This is all new to everyone, so we'll need to
So
figure
you're not
it.
aware of it?
I'm not saying if I am or I'm not aware of it. This is public comment at a meeting. So.
No, now we're in our meeting. So I'm asking that question as a board member. Because I know Mr. Buffy, as superintendent, takes care of these issues for us and has always done an excellent job. As a board member, I'd like to know if our superintendent is aware of this prior to this meeting, and has he taken steps? Now, you said you're not willing to discuss that right now.
No, I'm happy to answer that, and while people are filing out, I did not know about this bulletin board.
Okay.
We have hundreds, probably, of bulletin boards across all of our schools. I was not aware of this bulletin board.
Okay.
So if you're asking me, did I know about this? I did not.
Okay. And would it be appropriate for us at the end to go into non-public?
Well, we do have a non-public
Okay.
tonight.
Well,
Because,
that would only be if we're going to discuss something about personnel.
Yeah,
Right.
and
If
and
we're
I
gonna-
would. I
well, it
would-
very well might be with my next question, so. I'm very upset that this has happened tonight,
Yes.
and that this is happening in our schools.
Yeah, You're probably not the only
Maybe,
one.
maybe
I
we
am.
should take a deep breath before we
Ellen.
judge.
Well, I appreciate these people. I've been a parent of kids going through the system. I now have 2 grandchildren going into Mountain View. I understand your concerns.
Thank you.
And I think
Thank you for speaking
most
up.
of our board does as well. I just want to make sure that you understand this is not ending with your leaving. And this board is very conscious and concerned about all our issues in our schools.
Absolutely.
And I have great confidence in this superintendent, and I just want to know, maybe in a more appropriate setting, whether it's not, could be non-public, because I have a staff question on this topic. Like to know what is happening. I just thank you for coming and letting us know, because I know nothing about this going on. And if my grandkids came home from school the first day and started talking about this, holy hell. Okay?
Thank
So
you,
I'll
Ellen.
just leave it at that, and
All right, thank you, guys.
they will
Good
be
night.
heard.
Y'all have a good night now.
Good night, you too. Good night, guys, you're welcome. All right, so we're going to, did you have public comment on something else? No, okay. I just want to make sure that you had opportunity to speak. All right, so we're moving on to approving the minutes from June 19th. This is our school board meeting and our retreat. Did
I'll
anybody?
move to approve the minutes of June 19th. Are
Thank
they
you,
as
Ellen.
one packet? Is it?
Yeah, it's one big, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I have here, so I don't have, okay.
You're talking about the 29 pages.
Workshop. Yes, the big one.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh.
That was just passed around.
Okay, so I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any further discussion?
This is to Mr. Volkey.
That's okay. Ellen, we can do that later.
Yep.
So Ellen made the motion to approve. Okay. Nicole seconded.
Thank you.
Okay, and there's no further discussion, so I am going to take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
So, nice job, Mrs. Moore.
Yeah, that's,
All right, committee reports, A and F.
Thank you, Ms. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
I am playing the role of Dan. Dan may be losing his voice. We had our meeting earlier today, and I'd like to submit to the board our June manifest in the amount of $5,152,836.71.
Thank you, Jared. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Nicole. Thank you, Nicole. Go ahead, Jared.
I'm going to defer to our business administrator, Mr. Gross, for most of this, but payroll and taxes, as you can see, is a larger amount due to June and all the payouts that we have at the end of the fiscal year.
Jared?
Yes, sir.
If we may, can you repeat the number that's at the top of the sheet, please?
Thank you. I correct to the total manifest of $5,252,973.81. Thank you, Mr. Cloutier. SPED, there was some SPED activity to close out the month of June in the amount of $134,551. And then general expenses, as you can see, a large number of activities occurred under general expenses, mostly the field, the truck center, as well as some carpentry that we were using for the field and the approvals that were had, Amazon, as well as other activities within the month of June.
Anybody have any questions on this manifest? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Good, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bring to the attention and make a motion to approve the July 2023 manifest of the amount of $3,917,393.75. A majority of this, I do want to notate, is payroll and taxes for the month of July.
Hang on 1 second, Jared. You did a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, Nicole's saying, okay, go ahead.
Thank you for keeping me honest, Ms. Chair.
That's okay.
Again, there is sped activity, and this is basically the encumbrances we had in the last fiscal year. However, we have to still pay those bills. So they came from Fund 11, I believe, but these are the amounts that actually were paid for those sped out-of-district services. And then if we move over to general expenses, you will see the SAU 19 actually should read July assessment, not June assessment that's currently there, of the amount of $221,789. But as you can see, a plethora of activity occurs during the summer for all of these items. If there's any questions, I know that Mr. Gross is ready to go.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Ellen.
This is July, there's no school, okay? So, the sped line,
So what occurs is, we don't get our bills for the month of June or May. They come later in invoices, but we pay them in July. That's why they show up in our July manifest, and they're encumbrances at the end of the fiscal year in June, but we still have to pay those invoices, and that occurs later on.
thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Anyone else? All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to bring forward the August manifest in the amount of $2,233,652.98.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Go ahead, Nicole. Thank you. Go ahead, Jared.
Again, you see the payroll and taxes that occurred for the month of August, as well as sped out of district in the amount of $34,706. General expenses, I will notate in general expenses, the school data books for GHS, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The 14th line down in the amount of $6,483. This is a duplicate that's also under the Dave Ayotte and Associates, the second one from the bottom. Just want to make sure that people, actually, that doesn't match up. I'm sorry, fourth from the bottom, the school date books. Those are duplicate lines, so we had to remove one of them.
And it's Mountain View.
And it's Mountain View, not GHS.
Right. Thank you, Jared. Any questions?
So,
Go ahead, Ellen.
when you read the total, was the number
That's a good
minus that?
question.
It's correct. The number up top is correct.
The number up top is correct.
Thank you, Ellen. Anyone else? All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you, Jared. All right, Scott.
So with respect to the manifest, I wanted the board to know that going forward, I'm going to be rounding the payments that we make for special ed and our general expenses. Many of our administrators went through IT security, fraud protection training, and one of the recommendations from not only the consultant who provided the training for IT security, but also our bank, has suggested that we do not provide exact dollar and penny amounts in our public-facing documents. Reason being that the fraudsters are using that for phishing emails. That's a way that they are gaining access unwittingly. People are going in. So this is common in not only New Hampshire but in other places. So I'm going to be rounding them on the public-facing documents. The bottom line numbers are going to total what they are. Folks on the A&F committee will get the Excel spreadsheets that have those numbers, but this is just to protect us from those who have nefarious intentions, who want to hack into our system. So I just wanted to let you know that.
And if I may, the rounding is the pennies. It's
Pennies.
not the
Yeah,
dollars.
it's not the dollars.
So,
I provided the A&F committee as well.
Oh, sorry,
Can I
Jared.
interject for a moment?
Hang on a second, Scott.
Just because this was mentioned at A&F, and I do want to reference the chair, we don't have a policy associated with our manifests and how we report out. I would ask the chair that maybe we look at this in a policy discussion to say, should we have an actual policy about how we report out our manifests and have the rounding associated within that policy?
Yeah, we can look at it in PRC with, oh, sorry, Brian.
I think that's a good idea, and I might encourage the board, until such a policy change might be made, it might be helpful to have a motion to codify what Mr. Gross would like to do. Scott, I don't know if the auditors would recommend that or not, but I don't think it would hurt in any way that it would, your rounding would be reflective of the board's motion if the board is in support of this, until such a time that the, whatever policy change may be.
that was also discussed.
Yeah.
And thought it would be a good idea.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that as we report out our monthly manifest for the remainder of the fiscal year, that they be rounded to the nearest dollar based on our security training that has occurred.
Thank
Are
you, Jared.
are you amenable to modifying the monthly manifest to just simple manifest? Because sometimes we'll have 2 a month.
I do.
Okay. Are you seconding, Dan?
I will,
Okay.
once we modify, to just say manifest.
Okay. And you were good with that?
I'm good with that.
All right, any other further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay, we're unanimous. Go ahead, Scott.
All right, I mentioned to the A&F committee, that stands for Administration and Finance, for those of you who are watching on television. There's a memorandum of understanding between the YMCA and the Goffstown School District. And for those who might not know, there is a relationship between the YMCA Outreach Center and the Goffstown School District. The YMCA has long provided after-school programming at both Maple and Bartlett, where they use our facilities to provide after-school and before-school care for families in Goffstown. We do charge them a fee to use those facilities. In addition, the Goffstown School District uses the YMCA facilities, the pool for the swim team, as well as the gymnastics area for the gymnastics team. In the past, we've also had programming for our life skills students at Goffstown High School, as well as our flex program students at Mountain View Middle School, where they would take field trips to the YMCA for a variety of different programming that the YMCA offers. In the past, we charged the YMCA and the YMCA charged the school district. This would make that neutral. There would be no billing back and forth. And you'll see that on pages, I think it's 4 and 5, it talks about what are the provided services that the Y provides, what does the Goffstown School District provide, and it pretty much codifies what is existing practice. Going forward, there wouldn't be any invoices to either entity, and it's just an understanding where we were. As you'll see, there are a couple of things that were not included in this MOU simply because we couldn't get them hashed out. One of them is a program that the Y is interested in doing where they would provide training for students who want to be lifeguards, where they would pick the students up here from Goffstown High School and provide them that training. And then the other one is with respect to water safety. There is a donor in Goffstown who wishes to provide and fully fund water safety classes for all Goffstown and New Boston students, and that is in the works. But so it's because it's another endeavor, we couldn't put it in here. With that said, I wanted you to have an opportunity to read this, and then I'm going to ask that it be put on the agenda for September 11th board meeting to allow me or the superintendent to execute it. It would be retroactive to September 1, which is our, typically that's when our school year starts. So I just wanted to give you that in advance.
Does anybody have any questions? Because we will need to make a decision at the next board meeting. I know nobody's really had a chance to read it, but go ahead, Dan.
Yep. In one very small area, it talks about the space that the Y might need to use at the elementary schools? Is that like a small closet, or?
They use a vestibule at, say, Maple Avenue. They have storage cabinets.
Oh, so it's just a small little thing.
It's a very small area, and unfortunately, when we had the pipe burst, it was that area, and we salvaged their cookies though, Dan, so don't worry about that. But, so yeah, they do have some area where they keep their supplies in.
Okay.
All right, so we'll bring this back. I guess if you have questions, you can email Scott. Is that all right, Scott?
Oh, yeah,
If
that's
board members
fine.
had questions. Okay. All right, moving on.
So moving on, in terms of commodities during the summer. So some good news overall. So Dead River is the only provider, it's our current provider. We've had a good relationship with them. They're the only ones that will allow us to purchase what's called futures, meaning that we can buy well over a year out. So I did take advantage of that. I did purchase about 87,000 gallons of propane for the 24-25 school year at $1.58. So I did that over the summer. You had given me authorization to do so. The rate for this year that we're going to be in, as well as next year, is like $1.70 on average. So the $1.58 seemed to make sense. With respect to paper, two of the major suppliers are WB Mason and Staples. WB Mason was slightly less per ream, and we are going forward with WB Mason. They are, again, a vendor that we have used in the past. Heating oil, this one was a little complicated because last school year, we did not use the number of gallons that we had purchased, meaning that, as Jared noted, we had a milder type of winter. We only really use oil in Goffstown here at the high school, and we use it when it's colder and when we have to switch from propane to oil. Well, last year, we didn't really have to do that. So we had unused gallons that we did not purchase, but yet we are committed to the price on those gallons. So they had to do what's called a blended rate. So with that, we did proceed with that blended rate. It was about $3.59 a gallon. Had we gone through all of our oil purchases, it probably would have been around $3.20, $3.30, but we were obligated to do that. So luckily, we do not use a whole lot of oil here in Goffstown. Oil is the primary source of heat at the SAU, and in New Boston, I'd say, what do you think, Brian, about 30% is oil? So it's not something, we switched over to propane in almost all of our buildings, and generally speaking, it is a much more, it's less expensive than the others. So that's where we stand with those commodities. Any questions on that?
Nope, doesn't look like it. Go ahead.
All right, and then last but not least is your audit. So the audit was conducted a couple of weeks ago by the auditing firm of Plodzik and Sanderson. As usual, Laura Taylor, the Assistant Business Administrator in my office, does an outstanding job. I don't think there are any findings this year. So Laura, once again, that's her baby, and it's a beautiful baby, I'll put it that way. So it's just, she does such a wonderful job. They'll come in and they'll give you, once the audit is finalized, and it's months away, but Laura, again, just did an outstanding job. We had projected that we would have what's called a fund balance of about $2.3 million. When we did when we had the retreat, we projected where we would land, and we projected about $2.3 million. It ended up, due to releases of payroll encumbrances and other encumbrances, at $2.8 million. So that's the good news. What I mentioned to the A&F committee, and again, I don't need an answer tonight, but I will need an answer at the next meeting. With that, approximately $800,000 more in what we would call that fund balance or surplus, it's my recommendation that you put more money into your contingency fund. The contingency fund is used for two primary purposes. unbudgeted, or you can call them emergency type of expenses and/or tax relief. We don't, one of the biggest things, unknowns that we have before us right now is the population and the enrollments at Maple Avenue and Bartlett School, and how we're going to address that. And that's something that the board will have to contemplate over the next couple of months. I believe it's prudent to put a little bit more in that contingency fund to deal with those circumstances, or to have at least the funds to able to deal with that. And then the other reason is tax relief, and I see Nicole here, and I remember this past year was a very difficult year in New Boston, but we kind of had a perfect storm of things. And last year at this time, New Boston put a little bit more money in their, and they were in the same exact position. They put a little more money in their contingency fund, and then we used it in this last round to reduce the tax rate. So we didn't hit our revenue projections, and we had to use that to hit that target that we had set. So it is a phenomenal tool that we have. I'm very glad that the voters of Goffstown approved it. I think this is a prudent step to use about $235,000 of the $800,000 that's kind of extra, and put that in the contingency, towards contingency, and then let the rest, which is the majority of it, go to offset the tax rate for FY23. I say that because if FY24 is not great, we don't hit our targets, then we can use that to offset the tax rate in 24. So it's just a really good tool. I'm not asking for any type of decision this evening, but I will need a decision on September 11th when I give you your DOE 25 and your MS 25. Those are the state forms where we report out on the financials, and that's when we do have to make a commitment as to how much money is being put into that contingency fund and how much money is being used to offset the tax rate this particular year. So I was wondering if there's any questions on that.
Yep, Nicole had her hand up. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, just a quick clarification. So we have about 2.8 million above what we needed for the year. So 2 million going back automatically to tax relief?
So when I want to clarify a couple of things. When we say unassigned fund balance, it is for lack of a better term, it's a financial balance sheet type of fund. It's not like it's a separate.
You don't have a bank account with the money.
Correct.
Yes.
And with budgets in excess of $50 million, it's not. It's probably the percentage is not astronomical. That being the case, we had budgeted or projected $2 million when I do your projections when we set the budget. At the end of the year, we were projecting about 2.3-ish, and it came in at 2.8. So with that said, my recommendation is to return the lion's share of this, what we did not project, to offset the tax rate, but to keep a little bit of that for some of the unknowns that we have. With all these developments going on and the uncertainty at Maple Avenue and Bartlett, I think it would be very prudent for us to have these types of funds available if we need to tap into them.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for anyone that didn't understand that, yeah, we've got all this money, you're asking for a tiny portion of that.
Yep.
Thanks, Nicole. Ellen, go ahead, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just need to follow up to make sure I follow this correctly. So $2 million will go back to the taxpayers.
No, 2.6. If you proceed with what I'm recommending, about $2.6 million will go back to offset the tax rate, which is about $600,000 more than what I had projected last time, which was last October when we set the budget.
Okay.
Very good, Ellen.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ellen. Anyone else questions for Scott? So this will come back at the next meeting for a decision. All right?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have basically two different copies. One will be 865, one will be 1.1, and then you can make your, because you have to sign these forms at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
Thank
yes,
you.
Dan?
Can we just have a quick poll of the board?
Sure.
To see if anybody has any hesitation about a particular motion that would be made tonight, so Scott doesn't have to prepare two forms?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Great idea.
Thanks, Dan.
I mean, I'm in favor of doing the 1.1. If anyone is hesitant and wants another few weeks to do more research, whatever, absolutely. I think you should have that time. But I do, you know, I'm just, knowing that Scott might have to come back with two.
Right.
It's not that many pages, it's probably another half-hour work, but.
Yeah, but still. Is anybody questioning? Go ahead, Jared.
No, as a matter of comment, I'm in concurrence. I think that there's a lot of unknowns with the fourth grade and the capacity issues that we have at the elementary school. Knowing that there are decisions that need to be made, I think it is a prudent idea that maybe we do hold on to this money if we have an emergency plan implementation to accommodate the capacities that we have at the elementary school. So I'm in favor of keeping or maintaining $1.1 million at this point in time, and I would be okay voting on that tonight.
Okay.
I'm not hesitant to do that.
Anyone have any comments or
I'm
want to move
also
forward?
happy to support that tonight as well.
Me too. Shane?
Yep.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but
No.
we want to make sure everybody's comfortable with their vote. So it looks like
And I'll
we
go
could do
ahead and make a motion that we amend our previous authorization for the contingency fund at $865,000 and raise it to $1.1 million.
Thank you, Dan. Do I have a second? By Ginny. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you, Scott. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Dan, for saving me half an hour. Appreciate it.
There you go.
Now
All
you can
right.
go out in the field and mow it or something.
So are you set with A&F for now
Yeah.
on this? Okay. Budget Committee, Jared.
Budget Committee did meet in the month of August. They did do a tour of the high school. I was unaware that was occurring, and I was not present during that meeting as I took vacation. The next meeting that is occurring is on September 5th. I do not know the start time. I assume it's going to be 6 o'clock, but they are doing town facility reviews during that meeting. So I do know that we will be looking, or hopefully scheduling, to do the middle school and elementary schools for our budget committee reviews. And of course, once I'm aware of that, I'll let this board know so that those that want to attend, if we have a quorum, we can put the appropriate notification in place.
Perfect.
Because this is, not to steal some things from Ellen.
I have those dates if you want them.
You do? Great.
Yeah.
But I do know that this is a perfect time to emphasize what our CIP items are during these tours and really lay those on with the budget committee. I know our principals do a great job, our administration does a great job during these meetings, and these are very important to get the point across to our budget committee members that aren't in it like we are every day.
Thank you, Jared. Go ahead, Jenny.
I'm kind of confused. How did they do a tour without you? They didn't, like, let you know?
No, they
Or
let us
Ellen?
know. They said, hey, we have the meeting, which I knew about.
Yeah.
But they said that we're starting at 6 and doing a tour of the high school.
And
I
you
s-
were already gone?
And I already told them that I was not going to be available. But I believe Scott was present during the budget committee. Yes.
Scott was there, Mr. Largy, our new Dean of Students,
Mr.
and Mr.
McDermott.
McDermott, our new
Yeah,
curriculum
they did.
coordinator, both attended.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. As Jared well knows, the Budget Committee is their own entity, and they provided us with that evening with the dates in which they're going to be doing tours, which I communicated out to the impacted building principals. So you are correct, on September 5th is their next meeting, and is a town tour facility. But for us, here at the school district, Tuesday, September 12th, at 6 p.m., they're doing a tour of Bartlett, and then after that, Maple Avenue. So at 6 o'clock is Bartlett, 7 is Maple. And then the following week, Tuesday, September 19th, at 6 p.m., they'll be doing a tour of Glen Lake, and at 7 p.m. at Mountain View Middle School. I'll provide you a copy of this as well. On Monday, October 2nd, is when we're going to have a joint presentation with them, similar to in prior years of the school budget. And then the second part of that will take place on Wednesday, October 4th. So the good news, and I think it's something that I know Jared has been very helpful in trying to do these joint meetings, is because it's less time away from our building administrators. It's one less meeting that they have to attend, so that's very helpful. And then they're going to deliberate on the school budget on November 2nd, November 7th, the 9th, and the 14th if needed. So before Thanksgiving, the school budget will be reviewed, and they will more or less move that budget to a public hearing, and all of that action would be taken. So that's super helpful. And then after, I think the week prior, and then after Thanksgiving is when they take care of the town. So we have been pretty good in terms of giving them what they need, and in doing so, prior, right Thanksgiving time, we're kind of done with that process. So that's it. I'll get you a copy of this. This is what they gave me, but you'll also be getting information from Denise as to when these budget committee meetings are.
Yeah, we're going to
as well.
discuss that later
Yep.
tonight. All right, thanks, Scott. Thank you, Jared. Do you have anything else with budget? Okay. CIP, Ellen.
Yes, the process went well. There were no hiccups over the summer with this. Again, I guess I'd like to thank the CIP committee. They have been very respectful of the school district's input and the people that help me do the presentations of our needs and what they are. CIP is presenting to the budget committee the whole recommendation on September 17th, 7 o'clock at Town Hall.
Okay. All right, is that it?
That's it.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, Jared, back to you. Goffstown Planning Board meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Moran, for putting this on there. I was not expecting this. For those of you that have not seen it, because I'm still holding on to it, I did send a correspondence. I asked Ms. Moran to forward it to the rest of the board. I attended the meeting that occurred on roughly July 13th. A statement of fact that I will make is, if you have not attended another municipality board meeting, take an opportunity to do it, because they do things very differently. On a personal level, I was not able to articulate our position at that meeting. They do not have public comment unless if it was for a specific project on their agenda. Even though that they were talking about this project, it was only in relation to the Sewer Commission Association. So I was not able to get up and speak about it. That's my own personal reservations. However, I did forward the correspondence onto them that you all received. There is a follow-up meeting that they will be talking about the project in totality at the Shell State, or behind the Shell Station on September 14th. Again, I will be showing up in my personal capacity at that meeting to lodge my conversations that were outlined in the memo, as well as the updated plan that they shared with me that I believe has been sent to the superintendent as well. They are looking at their private drive going out onto Mass Road. I believe that there's a concern because the state visual lines that say you have to see within 400 feet of each side for coming out of an egress. There is a corner on Mass Road, and that is right at 400 feet. So you combine that minimum standard with school buses stopping, picking up children. I have a concern as a parent, even though that I do not live there. I have a concern as a parent for our children that may be there. So I do plan on attending on September 14th to air my grievances with the current plan. And I asked the superintendent if you could please send out those plans. I know that they are public, but if you could just let the rest of the board have that information as well. It is a large PDF megabyte. I could not bring it up on my phone. It was hard to zoom in and zoom out, but I do want everybody to have that information as well.
Great, thank you, Jared.
Heather?
Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
The planning board meeting is on 9/14. What time and at Town Hall?
It is, I believe, at 6 or 7, but it is on the public calendar. So you can always go to the Goffstown public calendar, and it is listed there.
And it's at Town Hall?
It is at Town Hall downstairs.
Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, do we need to give Jared permission or anything to speak on behalf of the board again? I mean,
yeah, we
he
did
didn't
that
get to
last
last
time.
time, so.
I'm not asking for that. I'm going to speak as myself if you want to empower me as you did before. I thought our memo got our point across, but I will say that a memo was sent, and I want to reemphasize that. I do not believe that that memo was sent on to the developer, and I want to make sure that that is actually done and voice my opinion as an individual, referring back to that memo. But if You want to give me added authority to represent the board, I'm happy to do that. I'm passionate about this, I'm sure most of you are as well.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, I'd like to move that the board authorize Jared to represent us at this meeting with regard to this new development and its egress at Mass Road and requiring that an appropriate bus stop be created there to enhance the safety on that highly trafficked road.
Yeah. And for reference, this is Park Place, map 5, lot 54. So again, that's Park Place, map 5, lot 54 for the development.
And Denise Ginny seconded. All right, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, thank you, Jared. Okay, PNC, Retta.
Yes, so PNC had a lot on its agenda today, and I'll start from the top. We did talk about some old business, including the website discussion that we brought forward in the past, and we also talked a little bit about it in the retreat. It is in the plan to rebuild the website next summer. So the committee will continue to be engaged in brainstorming some ideas. The three of us are going to start compiling questions and ideas of what the website could be, and we will hopefully be meeting with Stephen at our next meeting in November. But I just wanted to let you know that this is, we do have a goal for next summer to have that happen.
That's very exciting.
Are you going to hire a person to do that?
Yes, there is a person that we're looking at, or the school is looking at, and so it wouldn't fall under Stephen. So that was one thing. The next, we did talk a little bit about the mission and vision, and that's on the agenda later on, so we'll come back to that. We do, per the policy, we need to relook at that and vote on that. We talked quite a bit about the idea of a legislative subcommittee. Again, this got brought up at the retreat, and is this something that we want to form? We did not come to any conclusion at this meeting, because this could be a full-time job, doing this. I do want to remind all of you that you do get regular updates from the New Hampshire School Board Association, and the Business Administrators Association also gives updates on legislation that is coming before the House. So that comes out on a regular basis, and I encourage you to read that. The committee will also be reviewing it. There is just so much legislation that we won't be reviewing all of those, but over the next year, we would like to just see what would be involved with this and make an attempt to bring things forward that might be of interest when we report out. Yes?
I'd be willing to work on this with at least one other board member, preferably two, as a ad hoc subcommittee or whatever, and look into how we would set this up, how we would get information, and try and work it through, massage it through the next year to see how we can make this beneficial for the board's information, and maybe at some point start taking action as a board. So I'd be willing to work on it as long as there's other people who want to do it.
Right, and we and I think we just weren't ready to say, okay, we're going to make a committee right now, because there is a lot of work that would be involved, and the question of who would be doing it. Would it be our committee, or do we want to look at another committee? And there are some examples out there. And certainly, Ellen, I think what I would encourage you to do as we're going through this process is look at the School Board Association updates, prior to our meetings, because, it'll be more of an informal conversation. And Brian has always been really good, and Scott as well, at bringing forward legislation that we should be paying attention to. So we don't have enough time in the day to pay attention to every single thing. So it would be a matter of how can we, really
be aware.
yeah, just be aware and bring it out for
Yeah,
the
I
public.
don't receive, I'll say it again, I don't receive New Hampshire School Board Association emails, even in my spam. I'm not getting anything.
Okay.
I'm not saying nobody's sending it, I'm not getting it, I know it's not in there.
It goes to your SAU website.
And that's,
Or
and
email.
that's supposed to come, and I've double-checked, and it's automatically forwarded to my own email.
Right, they may not be forwarded.
So, I will keep working on that.
Yeah, and it may be something for, Brian was going to look into Nicole. You know, if any of you think you aren't getting it, we just
Right.
want to make sure that you are being included on those. I have it forwarded and I get it.
And you have it forwarded to
And
you,
you have it
and you
and you
get it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have
yeah,
not been
and I also
getting
get it in my.
Okay.
Go ahead, Scott.
If I just wanted to add one thing, is that what I've learned over the last year or two is that a lot of what the New Hampshire School Boards Association, School Administrators, Principals Association, they play defense about 95% of the time, if not higher, meaning that they're inundated with all of these education bills that more often than not have a negative impact on, say, public education, or they create, fair enough to say, burdens upon public education. What they don't do is they don't make it oftentimes easier or to do the housekeeping type items. So last year, as you know, the superintendent put forward some legislation regarding criminal background checks. We put one forward on, changing the threshold for public hearings to accept gifts. I've had conversations with our SPED director, our new one, as well as special ed facilitators, and there are some things that are done that are just heavy paper driven. Like in the statute, it says you must mail this U.S. mail. So there are opportunities there to just change things slightly that will make the lives, in this particular case, of our special education educators or case managers, make it a lot easier in terms of doing some things. And I think I'm trying to get some of that this year from some of our administrators. Say, are there any steps, when they tell me, well, I have to do this because that's what the law says, and it was like Lisa Johnson was the one who raised this issue from Maple Avenue, and she sent me the statute. I think it's one that we can try to change, but what we do at the New Hampshire School Boards Association, it's all defense. And I think there's opportunities to make the lives of people better and more efficient by just, being proactive.
Right, and Scott, thank you for bringing that up, because we did talk a little bit about that. It's not just reacting to what's out there. How can we make changes that would benefit our school district to make our jobs easier? And it's really a positive thing, so identify, if you're able to identify those, how do we bring them forward? And again, I think both you and Brian have shown us how that could work and how you can take action. So I think it's just making the board aware and the public aware of how we can make an impact. So just quickly, we did, let's see, we went over our work plan in our meeting times and talked a little bit about the communication plan, and we will be addressing these items in our next meeting and moving that forward as well. I do, on the subject of the New Hampshire School Board Association, you should also be receiving notifications of upcoming webinars. There's really some good ones that come up, so if you're not getting that, do look out. You can go to their website and they have them listed, but coming up in September, we have the changes in adequacy, the 2023 legislative summary recap, and the school board policies in response to recent legislation. So that's all coming up in September, which may be of interest to different groups. So we'll continue to bring that forward and just remind you as some of the more interesting ones come up. So I think that's all I have for now. We'll talk about the mission and vision later.
When's your next meeting?
Our next meeting is in not October, so September, October, November.
November
6th. After.
November
Okay,
6th. Thank you, Shane.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Retta. All right, policy review. We have our first meeting on September 18th at 5:30 at the SAU. C&E, Ginny.
C&E's first meeting is September 18th as well at 7 p.m. at the SAU.
All right, thank you. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome back, everyone. Nice to see all of you. It's great to be back at a school board meeting. I chose to not wear the shirt and tie today. This was my probably one and only board meeting absent the shirt and tie. Mr. Gross is trying to get me to be a little less formal. So I don't know how he's doing with that, but he's trying. So this is, I've got a couple of really great things to share with everyone. Obviously, it's been a really busy, hectic summer. We've had a lot going on. But there are a few things that I wanted to make sure the board heard. Goffstown High School was recognized this year as the only Division I school with 0 disqualifications from any coaches or athletes during the 22-23 school year. This is one of those little subtle things that most people wouldn't ever pay any attention to, but this one means a lot to me. 0 disqualifications. We were the only Division I school that can claim that. So I'd like to thank Mr. Huft and our coaches and our student athletes. That is something to be proud of. This is not one kid or one coach was kicked out of a game or anything of that nature. That's what you would be typically having with some kind of a disqualification. So I think that's a really significant thing that we should be very proud of. We've been working hard on lead testing again, looking at the 5 parts per billion, looking at stagnant water tests. So at this point, we've been starting to get our data back from multiple schools. Any faucets that are problematic will be replaced as they have been in the past. I don't know, Scott, if there's any grant money to replace problematic faucets this year. There was last year. We took advantage of that. So you may see bills associated with that, but at this point, we would plan to do that. Over the course of the summer, at the end of August, we received the School Boards Association legislative summary. There were over 250 bills that went into law that impacted public education. So just to give perspective, when Mrs. Vermakowitz and the PNC members were talking about this, 250 bills that became law. There were hundreds more that did not become law. Sometimes bills are tabled, sometimes they're sent back to committee for various reasons, but these are 250 bills that have implications for us as well as policy implications. So we're at the beginning of that process, working through it. Just know that there's a lot to take in there.
These are all education laws?
These are just education. So this isn't anything that has to do with public safety, has to do with municipal government, anything. These are just laws that pertain to school districts. So there are hundreds of bills that go through the legislative process every year that touch public education. This is as you can tell, strong feelings about public education, and so we have a lot to continue to go through. So all of that happened. We're in the process of evaluating what we need to do, and over the course of the next year, we will work through the policy process for those.
Hang on one second. Ellen had her
Where
hand
would
up.
I go to read all those?
We're happy to get that to you, Ellen.
Okay.
If it
I'd
would be.
like to just look through it.
Sure. If you want to let us know, we'd be happy to print that, and you could pick it up at the office. if
Or
you
just
want.
send it to me via email and I'll read it on my
Okay.
computer.
When is the starting date for those?
It was effective immediately.
Oh, they're all effective immediately?
So they're typically, they can be different.
Okay.
Typically, when bills go into effect, they become effective immediately.
Immediately.
Sometimes they could be brought in at a later point if there was, specific dates that were part of the legislation, but usually it's right away.
So that's a lot to catch up on.
Yep,
So,
yep, sure is.
You know what?
Go ahead.
Print it off, I'll come in and pick it up because that way I can write on it. I can't
I'm going
print
to
it.
email it to you right now.
Okay,
We'll print it for you. too.
okay, thank you, because I can't print it. Thank you.
So I hope no one will be disappointed. I don't want to disappoint any board members, but I've taken anything COVID-related off the website. You will find no COVID anything anywhere. The temporary regulation, the emergency authorization, it's all gone. There's nothing COVID that we have in place right now, and I'm just going to leave it there. Mrs. Kohler and I have worked hard on a new training video for school staff that will be focused on school safety. So we will be rolling that out this week with staff. We've put a lot of work into that, and there are a number of elements around our emergency operations plan that we've changed our training, and that will be happening this summer. We put a lot of time and effort into that. I'll give you some hiring updates a little later when we do school staffing, so I'll hold on that for now. A lot of facilities, activity. Mr. Gross, at some point, we should probably have Mr. Loring come and just do a summary or give us a summary that we could share of all the projects. And I don't even want to start to get into it. I mean, you're talking about projects across every building, all of our buildings. It's been very, very busy. We have two wonderful Pishkas in the school district. And you heard a little bit earlier about the award-winning Mr. Pishka, who I wanted to I wasn't going to do this, but because Mrs. Kohler brought it up, I wanted to make sure everyone knew that Andy Pishka was named as the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History as the New Hampshire state winner for National Teacher of the Year recognition program. This is an incredible recognition for one of our most talented, truly a gifted teacher. But one of the things that I had the chance to talk to Andy Pishka about as recently as this morning, just this morning, Mr. Pishka and I talked about this. When you think about a gentleman who is such an incredibly gifted educator, it's easy to think he's doing it because he has all of these innate natural skills. One of the things that people don't know about Andy is how hard he works. He works so hard to be prepared, to be well planned, to think deeply about his content. He puts in so much time. And I think about the great Larry Bird. Remember Larry Bird? I would agree that Larry Bird was an incredible basketball player, but what people never understood about Larry Bird is he was the first one at the gym, he was the last one to leave the gym, and he put in more time than anyone else, and that's Andy Pishka. Unbelievable. And I just wanted to make sure everyone knew what the award was and just the incredible recognition. Now, as I said, we have two great Pishkas, and the other great Pishka is, of course, Suzanne Pishka, who is our principal at Maple Ave. And I asked Mrs. Pishka to be here this evening. I don't ask principals to be here often, but I wanted to make sure that the public was aware, the board was aware of what we're dealing with in terms of enrollment at Maple Ave School. Our enrollment at Maple Ave continues to climb. So when we left June, on June 22nd, we had 524 students with projected enrollment. We've grown by 6. So we have picked up another 6 students. And I'd like to tell you, and I almost dare ask Mrs. Pishka if this has changed in the last couple of days. But in first grade, we have 126 students enrolled. Second grade, 134. Third grade, 142. And fourth grade, 128. That's a total of 530 students at Maple Ave School. But here's the most important part, and this is what I want the board to hear and to focus on. Let's talk about class size. And these class sizes might be slightly different across our sections, but I want the board to have a sense of what our class sizes are. And I hope that the public will be supportive. We're going to have to do some hard things. We're going to have to make some hard decisions to figure out how to support Maple Ave. Here are the class sizes that we're projecting to open school with. First grade, 17 or 18. Pretty good. We're pretty happy with that. And the reason for that is because Mrs. Pishka has prioritized class size for our youngest learners, recognizing the significant need for first graders to have a smaller class size. Second grade, 23 to 25. We do not feel good about that in any way, shape, or form. Third grade, 23 to 24. Again, do not feel good about that at all. And most concerning is fourth grade, 25 to 26. So I want people to hear we have a massive space crisis in our elementary schools. I continue to hear that students are leaving. I do not see that. The numbers are not telling me that. We are struggling, and in addition to these class sizes, I also want to remind the board and just reemphasize to the public, these are smaller than typical physical rooms. This is an old school. Typically, new schools that are built, you would build an elementary classroom that would be in the 900 to 1,100 square foot range. That's what every standard new school that you would build. You would be building 1,000 plus square foot classrooms. Most of the classrooms at Maple Ave, and I'm not gonna go through, we've been through all this before. I have spreadsheets, I have maps, I can give you all of this. We've talked about this for years. Most of our classrooms are in the 800 square foot range. Some are smaller, some are in the 6 and change. So not only do we have more kids than we want, the rooms are physically smaller than we want. So at this point, we are struggling. There are a number of challenges associated with this. I wanted Mrs. Pishka to be here so that the board could ask her if you have any questions for her, for Mrs. Johnson, for the work that's going on. I'd like to thank the board for your support of adding additional positions to Maple Ave. The board will recall that we've added a couple of different positions, including an additional administrator. Jill Ryu is in that position, so we have a third administrator at Maple Ave. We've added another teacher to focus on the social emotional learning and needs of our kids. This has to do with our teaching of Second Step, which is our school counseling type curriculum. So we put a number of other resources, but I wanted everyone to know the numbers are dire. 26 kids in a 4th grade classroom is terrible.
It is terrible.
And if there was a magic wand that we could create space and do something, we're willing and able to do that. You will hear a number of proposals this year during the budget process that will make changes to next school year. There's very little at this point that we can do, and even if we wanted to do more, there is no space. There's no place to put anyone. And hiring is and continues to be a challenge. So at some point, we might talk about additional staffing, but I want the board to know Maple Ave is very full. Our class sizes are significantly higher than all of our other buildings, including Goffstown High School. I don't have class sizes this large in this building, for the most part. So it is significant. I might pause here and ask if Mrs. Pishka, if anyone has any questions for Mrs.
Ellen and
Pishka.
Jared, yeah, Mrs. Pishka, you can come on up. I know we have some board members that have questions. Ellen, go ahead.
Are we using the current portable classrooms that are there
We are
as
using-
classrooms?
We are not using them for regular classrooms. They have no bathrooms, and kids have to leave the building and go back into the main building every single time they go to the bathroom. So we made a decision a number of years ago that we were not doing that.
But that's
Which
the new
portables?
quad.
No, sorry, we
Wait,
have.
which ones are you talking about? Sorry.
All of them.
So there are 4 classrooms out behind the school that are utilized completely,
Okay.
full all the time. The 2 portable classrooms in the front of the building have unified arts. Music and art are in there. Those are classes that kids go out for a short period of time, and then they go back into the main building. We do not have regular classrooms, traditional elementary classrooms in those classes all day. And we don't have, and I guess I would say, let's not get into the ideas of what we can do to solve Maple Ave. So we have a number of things that we have talked about. Well, so when Wendy and I go and speak to the Maple Ave staff, we're going to be talking about these things in more depth. But I have a list of things that are possibilities that we can explore. Many of them have budgetary implications, but we will be talking about that through the budget process.
And Jared had his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the administration, do we have enough paras and other professionals to assist us with our class sizes in order to make sure that we have eyes on kids during class?
I'll let Mrs. Pishka answer that. Before she does, however, when I talk about, let me give a little more on staffing, because I think this is relevant to Mr. Talbot's question. So at this point, from a teaching perspective, we only have 2 teaching positions that are unfilled in all of Goffstown. One is a 1-day-a-week phys ed teacher at Bartlett, so that is a .2 full-time equivalency. That is a 1-day position. We've not been able to fill that, and we have 1 full-time special education teacher position at Mountain View that we have been unable to fill. I'm very pleased that Brenda French, who is one of our wonderful retired teachers, is going to continue to support us a number of days a week as we continue to try to hire that. But here's the part that pertains to what Mr. Talbot asked about. We have 17 paraprofessional positions unfilled at this point, 17. So I can't tell you how many of those are at Maple Ave. I bet you Suzanne can, 0. Great, so that's good
Okay.
news.
That's good.
So actually, so hold on. 17 positions, 12 paras, 3 part-time custodians, and 2 head cooks. So of the 17, that breaks down 12 paraprofessionals, 3 part-time custodians, and 2 head cooks.
Okay, so that's the 17.
That's the 17. So it's 12 paras.
Which are not at Maple.
We are fully staffed.
Great.
Do you have
Just a
some-
general
yeah.
comment, great. I'm glad that we have enough eyes on kids. I understand that there's nothing that we can do in the immediate future since school is opening up next week. But if you need anything, please, I know that you'll send it to the administration, they'll bring it to our attention, but we're busting at the seams, and hopefully we have a great plan moving forward
Yeah.
that we'll discuss.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jared. Go ahead, Jenny.
And just to verify, these numbers are the only reason that we go to speak at planning board meetings against new developments, is that right? Not because we don't want kids in town. but
Yeah,
that
and the idea that we
numbers
don't
are
want kids
full.
in town, not true. The idea that we don't want, new houses to be built, not true. I want Goffstown and New Boston to be vibrant economic locations that are desirable. Great schools equals property value, so people have moved here, they want to be here because of great schools. We are busting at the seams. So these numbers do not include any children, 0 children from that new Bog Road development. 0. She hasn't gotten a single one. They're coming. So to the planning board, there are consequences to decisions. And when you approve developments that put potentially dozens and dozens of new kids into schools that are already at class sizes of 26, there's a reality to that.
I didn't see your hand up.
Yeah, you
there.
did, you said, okay. That's all right.
I'm sorry, I was doing Jared. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was after that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you just tell me how many classrooms for each of the grades you have, please?
Sure. First grade has 7. Second grade has 6. Third grade has 6. And fourth grade has 5.
Thank you.
And how many vacant rooms do you have at Maple Ave?
-1.
0.
Are you all set, Dan?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Go ahead, Retta.
Back to the developments, we know they're coming. Are any of them going to be taking in the residents in this year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Bog?
Yeah, all of them, all of them. And so there are further complications that you might say, well, Brian, maybe you need to bus students to Bartlett. There are significant challenges with every option that we can and will consider. All of them have a lot of moving parts. There are different start and end times to school. That's all predicated on our busing system, where we're already short drivers. So it's a complicated problem. But these numbers include 0 new enrollments from any of these developments, particularly Bog Road is the one that has us the most concerned.
And just as a follow-up, so I understand that we're looking at options for the future, which will have budgetary impacts, but it sounds like we also need options immediately or in the very near future. Is that on the table to change anything with the current situation, or are we okay with this until the next budget?
Are we okay with this? We are not okay with this. So I want to be clear, we are not okay with anything about class sizes of 26 kids for elementary schools. And now if I start to add kids from Bog Road and I go from 26 to 27 to 28, I'm not okay with any of this. We've added a number of positions to try to help support as best we can. I think the board, I don't want to speak for the board, but the board is very supportive and wants to help whatever we can do with Maple Ave. I am not claiming to have all of the answers or all of the possible solutions that we could explore. We will go through and talk more about these, but we are very concerned about the class size.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two separate thoughts, just because it was mentioned at public comment. I am not against development in Goffstown. I think development needs to be managed appropriately. So for those that are saying that the school board isn't for development, I think that nothing is further from the truth, in my opinion.
That's my point.
Second, just remember, for our developments that we do receive, we do get impact fees. Impact fees are associated with the impact of our infrastructure. So Bog Road, all of our developments, they do get impact fees that we should be using and are increases to our budget. So as we get more kids, those impact fees should be covering it. Unfortunately, it is only a one-time item that is then hopefully carried perpetually as part of our budgeting process. However, I am in concurrence with most members of this board, as well as the superintendent, that this is not a supportive model in our current state. We are looking at 10s to 50s to many more kids coming on with these developments. And by having these relations with other boards, we can make sure that our voices are heard. I think on a personal level, I think that we have been very segregated in the municipalities for the different boards and not working together. I think that a lot of us are starting to bridge that gap now. So hopefully this is something that we can continue as we move forward.
Well, and I appreciate that. And when we see Jared attending planning board meetings, I think that's wonderful. I'd like to see planning board members at this meeting. I've been sitting at this table a long time. I've seen 0 people come here and be concerned about the potential impact to our schools. I've had 0 people call me. So I'd like to see it be two-directional.
Yep.
All right, is there anything else on your, did Dan have another question? Did his hand go up?
No,
Oh.
but thank you.
All right.
No, I was thinking of it, but it's, well, let me go ahead and ask it anyway.
Oh, let's see.
But it doesn't have to do with Maple Ave,
Okay.
it's the class sizes.
Yep.
And we're talking about, thinking about busing over to Bartlett, and I don't think we can, because one, the classrooms there are actually smaller, and the class sizes are still large, are they not?
The class sizes at Bartlett are not bad. They're in
They're
the
okay.
17 to 19 kind of range.
Which is where we're looking for.
Which is where we want to be.
Yeah.
So I would happily take kids at Bartlett to reduce the numbers at Maple Ave. Doing so is very complicated.
Oh.
Because you're talking about busing kids to
Yeah.
a school that starts earlier.
Yeah. And
Maple Ave starts after Bartlett, and the reason for that has always been a function of our kind of multi-tiered bus runs. So in an environment where we want, what do we want, Scott, 22 buses? Yes, 22 to 20, over 20,
Yes,
and
20.
and we're starting the school year
15.
down. We're down 5 plus.
Well, that's just talking about buses, but now you have multi-children, one family, now getting split, pickup times in 2 different places, families who are saying, wait a minute, I bought the house here because, this is my local school, why are we going across town? So we have that emotional roller coaster too, that's not easy.
Agreed.
The only thing to do there is we would have to actually change the demarcation lines to go like
So
that, and that's not easy.
Redistricting is part
Yeah.
of the many options that we have on the list right now. So
Yeah.
Yes, all complicated entities that will take time, but absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Ginny, go ahead.
On any of our school properties, being the elementary schools, do we have any room on them for more portables anyway?
Well, we certainly do at Glen Lake. When you look at the Glen Lake property, that whole field to the left of the school, that's all of our land. So there is flat, sufficient, additional land there. Somewhere, Mrs. Stoyle is cringing at the thought of this, but there's land there.
That would mean busing.
Bartlett is completely built out. So the only option that you could ever consider with like a Bartlett would be getting rid of the existing portable classrooms and building something more permanent, brick and mortar, in an environment with no building aid. So, again, things that we need to work on, we need to work on building aid. We need to work on building aid for this town. The process right now, and I know we talked about this at our board retreat back in June, there is a small amount of money across all municipalities that is available for building aid. It is a fraction of what it should be. The infrastructure of our public schools in New Hampshire are being completely not taken care of because there's not building aid to redo these schools. To do renovations, to do improvements, there is no money to do it. So I'm trying not to be doomsday over this, and I apologize if I have kind of a rough tone, but I just want everyone to know this is a serious issue and challenge that we're facing at Maple Ave right now. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Pishka, Mrs. Johnson, Mrs. Ryu. They are making it work, and they're doing it with smiles. So as much as you hear a tone from the superintendent that might sound a little surly, Mrs. Pishka is happy and smiling and cheerful and welcoming kids back and wants to make sure that we're setting the appropriate tone. But I need this board to know we are really struggling here. We are really struggling, and there are not good options. And I'm very concerned. And I'm equally as concerned about New Boston. So I talk often about the number of building lots in New Boston that the town has already approved. There are hundreds of building lots in New Boston that the New Boston Planning Board approved years ago, that haven't even broken ground yet. And they will. And that's also going to impact your enrollment because there are going to be kids that are in 7 through 12. So I'll try to end there. Thank you, Mrs. Pishka. I appreciate you being here. And I will, again, try to have a happy, cheery disposition. As I say, we're excited about the new school year. Mrs. Kohler has done a great job. We've had incredible teacher training going on with our new math program, new teachers, new induction program. There's just a ton of great stuff going on.
You have a question before
Yeah,
Mrs.
before
Pishka?
Mrs. Pishka runs, I just know that you had a paper there, and I didn't know if you had something you wanted to share with us that we didn't ask you, that Brian may not have touched on, that.
No, I just
Grocery
have
list?
the email and I have your policy, the IIB on class size.
Yeah, and I think we strive, I think we changed the wording to no more than to strive to be under.
Yes.
And what's that number, just so that,
So, for kindergarten to grade 2, put my glasses on. It's late. Kindergarten to grade 2, it's 16 to 22. Grades 3 through 6, it's 19 to 24. And it says here, in determining the size of various classes, the administration will consider the following factors, which we do.
Yep.
The type of load which will help the teacher to be most effective with the children in the class, required preparation and correction time for a particular class, and the square footage of the classroom, which is why some of our second grade are a little higher, because our 4-classroom portable is a little smaller. So
Right.
the higher second grade classrooms are in our brick and mortar building, as they can fit a few more.
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pishka. Appreciate you being here.
Of course, have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Are you good? All right. All right, so moving on from the superintendent's report, we have old business. June board approval updates. Scott, do you want to go through this?
Did we actually make any, Scott? Because anything we did would have been on the manifest
Right.
anyway.
Correct. What I will do on the September 11 meeting is I typically ask the board to authorize me to make out-of-sequence checks, or if there's if there is, and then report back to you on those out-of-sequence checks, which typically end up in the manifest anyway. But that's something that I like to do every year because we do make checks, out of sequence, and I wanted to at least, get that authorization. But that's the only thing. But I'll put that, Denise, if you could just make a note of that I want to put that on. We do that every year.
So is there anything on this list that we need to do?
Nothing. We did not act on any grants. Hiring, we're going to talk about a little bit later. And the other business we did touch upon in terms of paper and oil and all the other stuff. So.
Okay.
We're good, we're covered.
All right, thank you, Scott. All right, so moving on to mission and vision statement review. Retta?
Yes, so at the board retreat, we briefly took a look at the school board mission along with the school district vision, mission, and guiding principles. We did get a recommended change that Jared had proposed, and that is on the school district vision, mission, and guiding principles. And that's guiding principles number 1, high quality and equitable public education is a foundation of our democracy. And Jared proposed that we change democracy to republic. And the committee did meet, and I think there's one or the other. It might be a little bit confusing, and we just threw out maybe democratic republic. So, anyways, a couple people had some comments.
My first,
You have your hand, you raised your
I
hand?
did.
Okay.
Sorry.
I didn't see
Retta
it.
saw me.
No, I didn't,
And then Ellen.
Keep missing
Do
mine.
I guess I was kind of confused, but now that you read it, it makes more sense. I don't know why, but when I make my comment, it'll make more sense. We have a Goffstown school district, and we have a Goffstown school board. The district has a vision, mission, and guiding principles. The school board has a mission and guiding principles. Who is writing each of these?
This goes back probably.
Understand.
3 years.
Are we writing both of these documents?
They were, I think they were 2 separate documents, and I'd have to go back and
Okay.
look. And one had, as you've stated, they're not exactly the same. The school board had a mission, but didn't have a vision, and we just didn't, it was getting to be too many. So it was more or less based on what was already in place. The guiding principles were really, it was more of a big paragraph. So they were just broken out. So these are the 2 that were approved, and the dates are on that. So the original documents are the 2 that were approved.
Right. Do we need both of these?
So that's a question.
They're subtly different.
Yeah, they are subtly different, and they were pre-existing, and we tried to stay true to that without saying, oh, we're just going to get rid of this, because one is for the school board, and the other one is overarching for the school district, which kind of is above all of the schools. Each of the schools also have their own vision and mission. So this is a little more overarching. What the policy says is that the school board will develop a mission statement for the school district and the board should review the statement annually and revise as necessary.
School district mission.
Well,
doesn't
it
say
said the
we-
school board will do the school district, and it does say singular.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, the reason I'm confused is, I like this one because it's plain
one is
English.
that? The school
Oh,
board.
sorry, it's the school board one.
Mhm.
It's plain English, and they just say blah, 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 blah. There's very little, what's the word I'm looking, interpretation that needs to be done, because the words are very straightforward. The other one has a lot of, if I can use the word, gobbledygook. And it's like, I need, that's what I'm saying. And I could spend the next hour plus nitpicking my way through this other one that I'm not sure if we need to. And that's the basis for my question.
Ellen, did you have your hand up?
Well, yeah, I've had the same concern. I don't know why there's 2 different ones, although I understand the board might be slightly different in how it sets out its operational ideas, okay? Is there a way of putting these together and having one?
There could be, yes. Can we do it tonight? Probably not. And one of the things I will just reiterate that, I mean, I think it's really important to have these statements in place, because I think especially the guiding principle, it kind of defines who we are and how we go about business. Both of these were pre-existing, and I just tried to get them separated. But that is something that could be put on the table.
I would ask that the committee look into putting this together and more matter-of-fact type language, not over flourishing. But I did have, personally, I'd like to, on number 5, under, which one is it? Goffstown School District, take the word global out and just make it citizens.
Oh, yeah, that was one of my
What-
initial
wait a
observations.
second, which one is that?
Number
That's why I
5.
started from the,
To be good global citizens.
Good citizens.
I don't have any idea why global's in there. We're not globalists. Just good
no,
citizens.
we're trying to be local.
Right.
That was part of my gobbledygook.
I understand.
Ginny, you had your hand
You
up.
weren't,
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we take out all the statements out of every school one, and then do one so that one could go into every school? Is that what this one is?
I haven't
If I
looked at,
remember correctly,
For the school district
for the
vision?
handbooks.
Right.
and I'm not sure if both of them are in the handbooks. I think the committee actually recommended probably taking both
Right.
of these out of the handbook and just have it on the school board page. So, I think, of the two, do we want to have, is it the school board that needs this, or is it the school district that needs this?
It sounds like the policy requires that we do it for the district, correct? I have no problem with reviewing and combining if that's what everyone wants to do, but it does look like to me that the guiding principles are pretty different for the board. It's more about how we operate and support the district. So to combine is not just an effort of like squishing together. We'd have to relook at the whole thing.
yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why it was separate, right? So the board had their own vision, which is what you guys have been working on for so long. And then there's the district.
Right.
Go ahead, Dan.
Which is pretty confusing to me, because as a school board member, my guiding vision, I don't sit around pondering, how can I be part of the school board better? It's like, how do we make the district better? That's my thought process. So whatever we title it, it's not our vision for the school board. It's the school board's vision
For the district.
for the district, which includes the school board if we wanted to do that. But that's where I'm coming from. That's,
Wendy, go ahead.
May I also mention, as part of our NEA and SC process, we're in the midst of working on a draft of our Vision of a Graduate, which really does talk about kind of the mission of the district. So I just want to bring that to the board's attention. It's something that we're working on as part of our accreditation process. So you are going to be seeing some language coming this year in regard to that. So just wanted to bring that up as well.
And is that for the school district?
Yes, so even though NEAS and C only is part of the high school and the middle school, we really do talk about what do we want our graduates to know by the time they leave, and of course that impacts our elementary schools and what we're doing. So it really will be the district vision that we'll be working on, and not something that's just specific to Goffstown High School.
Okay. So if your committee could,
So is the consensus to bring this back to the committee and have you put it into one?
And it would be
Vision and
the
mission.
school district
District.
vision, mission, and guiding principles, which would include elements of both without the gobbledygook,
if as appropriate. I mean,
Right.
as appropriate. Okay.
that's okay.
All right, so next is our draft schedules. So we talked about these.
Reaffirm that.
Oh, I missed ADA, that's because it's down here, hang on. Thank you, Jared.
What am I going to?
Hang on, I gotta find it.
These policies?
Oh, thank you, Brian. Okay, so we have to review policy AD and review policy ADA. So you guys should have them in front of you. But we already did AD, because that's what we just asked Retta to go back and do. The other one is school district goals and objectives, so we need to just review it every year and put a date that we reviewed on the bottom.
I have no
Everybody's
recommended
good?
changes or
March
additions.
ADA is completed.
All right, so we'll just put a review date on there, Denise, thank you. Okay, so,
And Heather, would it be actually a review date, or would just be in the in our minutes that said?
we reviewed, yeah.
We reviewed ADA.
Okay, that's fine, I just want to make sure we're sticking to policy that we did review it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can put these aside.
Yep. All right, so before we get into questions and answers, back to drafts. So in front of you, we talked about this at the retreat. We have school board meetings scheduled. What you may have seen in June may be different now, because as administration went through, they had to change some things. So this needs to be approved tonight, and this would be the school year schedule for your school board meeting. We also have the C&E schedule, P&C, and there was,
C&E.
wasn't there,
And Scott will be giving us the budget committee.
will be
as he
giving us the
outlined.
budget, yeah.
And technically, it would be, AF would be the school board one too.
Yes, A&F meets right before the school board meeting.
Okay.
Yep, so if everybody is good, as you can see, there are budget stuff on here. So in October, for our new members, we do meet quite a bit. We try to be consistent with Mondays and Wednesdays in time. We always add an extra day if needed, just so everybody puts it on their calendar. You may not need to have it, but we just want to make sure that we have a quorum. So October gets very busy.
And we should know what the deliberation, because that's actually state statute.
Usually that's like the end of Jan.
We have to go
Yeah.
back and we have to look at the statute, because it's like, excuse me, the September primary is the second Tuesday after the second one, or it's the way they word it. I didn't have time, I didn't look it up, but
Yeah, so
it's
we're.
not important to know tonight,
Right,
but
and that'll be.
we don't have to wait for the DRA, I don't believe.
Right, we'll let everybody know.
Okay.
With that. So if everybody is good with this, we'll need a motion to approve it.
When is our graduation?
When is the graduation?
For next year?
Or end of school?
June.
Well, I'm looking at our last meeting
Last
would be
day?
June 17th and that kind of thing, and how close is that to the last day of school?
I believe Mrs. Moran is flipping over to the handy dandy calendar.
Right.
What do you got, Denise? June 17th.
Does that cause any issues for anybody being there that, it's a half day, right?
Yeah.
It's an early dismissal?
Typically be an early dismissal, but remember, that doesn't assume any closures due to weather.
Right.
And we also will have the New Hampshire primary. I am planning on that being a remote day, so that theoretically won't impact the calendar, but that date has not been set. If anybody has any inside information, perhaps from the Secretary of State's office, we would appreciate knowing that, but at this point, there is no date for that primary.
At the moment, it's going to be at least early January. It may be earlier.
It could be December.
It could be.
So we, just so the board knows, we have been talking about that as an administrative team since last year, that we will not be surprised if it's in December. We're prepared for that.
So is everybody good with this proposed schedule? If I could have a motion for that.
Are we approving the schedule?
Of the school board meetings. Yes.
Move to approve the school board meeting schedule.
Thank you. We have a second by Ginny. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Okay, so do we need to do PNC? I mean, we don't usually approve those, PNC and C&E. So people on PNC, this is your schedule, and C&E, that's your schedule. Okay. All right, so moving on. So back in June, we had a couple of policies for first read, and you have them in front of you. Tonight is questions. Or anything on any of these policies? There was a few. Go ahead, Ellen.
It appears, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree, where to go. Vending machines. I'm not sure I'm reading this correctly, but it sounds like there will be no vending machines for students. It's only for the adults. I'm not reading that correctly?
You're not reading that correct.
So students will have some?
So,
Go ahead, Brian.
yes, students will have access to vending machines. We're trying to codify our current practice. We have we have a singular, I think there might be two, but we have one student vending machine that is operated by our food services program. They sell things like parfaits and snacks and yogurts and sandwiches and stuff like that. And our policy did not allow for that. That's what we were seeking to change this policy, is we are using vending machines, and students are able to use their lunch account in order to access that food. So we just wanted to codify that in policy. We're not saying no vending machines. But Ellen, there are elements that there are state laws, and again, lots of laws, lots of regulations, of kids can't have access to certain vending machines. Coke, sodas and things like that, candy bars, that sort of thing.
I can barely read the red on here, and then the black went on to say vending machines may be operated in the school employees lounge for non-students, and I can hardly read the red that came before that, so that's where my confusion came in.
Yeah, so
That's
there's
just me.
vending machines in staff lounges that students are not allowed.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Would
Go ahead,
it be
Jim.
helpful if we read it for you, Ellen, so that you can see that first paragraph in totality, or at least hear it?
Yeah, after Goffstown School District, then it's something
Says
policy.
Wellness Policy JLCF, period. Any vending machine authorized for student use shall comply with food service requirements as well as school district policies.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little thin. All right, so any other questions, comments on any of these? So these will come September 11th for second read.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
On the co-curricular and extracurricular, there seems to be a lot of changes. May I ask what prompted? Oh, actually, it's only on the first page.
Yeah, it was Laura and Kate McGrath went through a lot of this stuff. This is an old policy that needed to be revised to go with what we're doing.
Yeah, I can't,
We
because
changed-
there's orange, there's green, there's blue, there's purple.
Yeah, so the next one you'll get a clean slate, but it was trying to be consistent with all our co-curriculars. So student activities, student gloves, organizations, all the stuff that we have to do.
To make it consistent.
Yep.
That was the purpose of these changes.
Well, and just going by what our practice is, this policy hasn't been reviewed in, since 2000.
It's, okay,
So,
thank you.
You're welcome. All right. All right, so that will come back at the next one.
Now where am I?
All right, so new policy, we have to reaffirm DFA policy, which is investment. And this will need to also be reaffirmed on the date on the bottom.
Move to affirm policy DFA.
Do I have a second? By Ginny, sorry Ginny, didn't see your hand. Any further questions?
Probably just.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of different things tonight where our policies say the investment policy shall be reviewed annually by the school board, and we let the minutes take care of it.
Okay.
I
Instead
don't
of
know
doing
whether a
motions?
formal motion needed
Okay,
to be
that's
made
fine.
to do that. It doesn't
We do
totally
have to-
hurt anything, but it's like.
Right, and we do need to
The
put
auditors look for that, they look for the motion.
the motions.
Yeah, as
I mean,
evidence.
hey,
With the
the auditors don't run our meeting. I'm sorry. I like them, but they don't run the meetings. And our policy says we shall just review it. And if the minutes say we reviewed the policy, and Plosdick and Sanderson has a problem with that, I was gonna stop there, because it's not worth the fight.
No, it's not.
I'm leaving my motion.
That's fine, but we will need to put it on the bottom that we reaffirmed it. Okay. All right, field trip request.
But we didn't,
Yeah,
if
we
we're gonna
did.
do
We
that, put it on the bottom, don't we have to actually vote, since the
You have to
motion's
vote
on the
on it.
floor?
Did we vote?
No,
No.
because Dan wanted not to have a motion.
But if we're gonna put it on the bottom of the policy, we need to vote.
But it's in the minutes that we reviewed it,
I like your thought process.
which is what we did with the last one.
Okay.
So my motion to affirm and Ginny's second are,
We can take off. Unless you guys want to vote on it, I don't care. I had no problem making a motion and voting.
Why don't we just vote? We've got the motion
fine.
and the second.
get it done.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
Here we go.
Okay. Moving on, field trip.
Thank you. So we have, this is an annual trip that Jess Brown, who is our wonderful math teacher here at Goffstown High School and is our varsity field hockey coach. Every year, she's been doing this for a really long time. She takes the team, the field hockey team, down to a college game, and this year they will be going on September 8th to the Boston University campus to see two nationally ranked field hockey teams compete, BC versus BU, which I think might be some kind of a small Boston rivalry.
Cool.
Between the two teams. And this is great that Jess does this. It's to give kids the chance to see field hockey at a higher level, to get kids thinking about playing in college, to encourage that. So we would, again, ask for your support of that out-of-state field trip.
Move to approve the out-of-state field trip for the annual field hockey team.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Jared. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Dan.
All of the field trip cost worksheet on my copy is blank on the back. So
There's no charge. So earlier Wendy talked about that they do their annual MUM field trip, or fundraiser. They sell gorgeous
Flowers.
mums, they raise a lot of money, and they're able to fund these things. So there's no cost to the students or the district. It's part of their fundraising.
excellent.
Yep.
Thank you.
And again, Jess Brown does an incredible job. We're very fortunate to have her as our coach.
Just having inside information from speaking with her, you might be seeing this in your last meeting of June, because she's worried that you might not have a school board meeting if that game happens to be before your first meeting. So she's probably gonna ask permission.
Earlier.
To do it earlier.
Yeah,
Right.
just to try to
Earlier.
make sure it's.
Yep.
And I would have no problem with her, even if she didn't know the date, to come and, this is something that the board has seen this for years and years and years, so I would imagine we'd be happy to, this is something I think is great for kids, so we want to support this.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, thank you. Staffing.
Okay, there is a rather large staffing sheet that all of you should have, and I'd like to give a couple of notifications first. So we have a track change for Emily App, going from Bachelor's 15 to Bachelor's 30. Congratulations to Emily. And we have a student teacher, Benjamin LeMay, working with Mr. Kostecki, who's one of our school counselors here at Goffstown High School, from Riviera University, which will be most of the school year. Their program ends before the end of the school year. I think that's a disservice to the students. They don't get to see what the end of the school year looks like, but be that as it may. For your approval, we've had some moves that we need to share with you. So we have moved Mr. Lewis from the Dean of Students position at Mountain View Middle School into the Curriculum Coordinator role. So you'll see there is a resignation and a subsequent nomination. And to backfill the Dean of Students role, you'll see that we are nominating William Demers. That name sounds familiar. You might be considering to yourself, Mr. Demers is coming back. So Mr. Demers was the assistant principal at Mountain View. He worked with Mrs. Kohler for a number of years, was an excellent school administrator. He got a principal position, left us to another district, and then left education, was working outside of education, and decided that he missed it and wanted to come back, and we couldn't have been more pleased to welcome him back. So you'll see a very experienced, very knowledgeable, very smart, caring man that we're very pleased to welcome back, in addition to Mr. Lewis in the new role, who I think will be spectacular.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna.
Yeah, how do you want to do?
Well, I think we should accept
in groups?
the resignation of Josh Lewis and then accept his nomination, right?
Yep.
So.
Move to accept Josh Lewis's resignation and nomination to curriculum coordinator.
Okay, that works. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
By Nicole. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
Okay, so that's Josh.
All right, so then the next one, I don't have.
Move to approve
Bill
William
Demers.
Demers as the Dean
okay.
of Students at Mountain View.
Okay. So Ellen did that one, and then Shane second that. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Okay.
Okay, so we have two resignations for Kelly Hogan and Kelly Doobie, both school psychologists.
Yikes.
All right, so we'll do that one.
Move to accept, I guess, the resignations of Kelly Hogan and Kelly Doobie.
Do I have a second by Nicole? Thank you, Nicole. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay, we're unanimous.
Thank you. Next,
Alright.
you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teacher nominations. Before we approve those, one of the questions that the board often asks me is, what have we hired for new staff? What is the experience level of our teachers? Are we hiring brand new teachers right out of school? What are we finding? And I wouldn't want there to be any kind of a misconception that we are directing school administrators to not hire experienced teachers. So I'd like to share with you the average experience of the staff that we hired this year is 9.5 years. That's the average. So I'd like to just give you a little more perspective on that. So I'm not going to give you all these names and all the data, but I just wanted to share with you 4 years experience, 16 years experience, 15 years experience, 13 years experience, 0. So there's your brand new person. Math teacher, lucky to find him. 15 years experience, 10 years experience, 14 years experience, 10 years experience. Tell me when you see the pattern. 4 years experience, 18 years, 8, 6, 1, 17, 11, 5, 4, 0, 5, 16, 17. So that just gives you a sense that we were able to do something this year that historically we have not been able to do in Goffstown, and that is hire trained, experienced teachers who already know what they're doing. This is a great thing.
Really important.
This is a function of our new contract. This is a function of our reputation, of people who want to be here, who want to work in a great supportive school system. So I just wanted to share that with you, that in the past, we don't always have this kind of luck, and we're not able to fill these positions. And you likely have heard and seen the struggle of other communities that have continued to have an incredible difficulty filling teaching positions. I only share this because it's a local example. I was asked by WMUR to do a little quick snippet on hiring, And their big story was that Ware Middle School couldn't find 22 teachers. So there are great people over there. I'm friends with the superintendent. I'm very good friends with the principal of Ware Middle School, who is John Barry, who is MC's Barry's son. 22 positions in that one building. I have a .2 phys ed teacher and 1 special ed teacher we can't find. So overall, we have been extremely successful. I'd like to thank the incredible work from Kate McGrath and her team. 51 transfer or new staff members is what they processed out of our tiny little HR department. Oh my God. And I'd like to thank also Wendy. Wendy interviewed and approved every single one of these. That's a lot of time. She had the chance to meet with them. Think about doing new teacher induction in our new teacher mentoring program when you're talking about teachers that have an average of 10 years. That's incredible. That means that we can really get more depth. We can go into more specificity.
Sooner.
I often share with new teachers that when you're a brand new teacher, you kind of don't have a huge toolbox. You're still learning, right? You need to develop those skills. These people already have it. So we are so happy and so proud of what we've been able to hire this year. So I'd prefer not to read all the names. They're on.
So, go ahead.
Go
I was
ahead.
going to just do teacher nominations
Sure.
first.
Move to approve the teacher nominations as presented.
Okay,
How's that?
Perfect. Thank you, Alan. Do I have a second by Nicole?
There's
All-
also a nurse there.
Yes.
Do we need to do that?
Oh, yeah, it was all, well, it's
They're
under the teacher.
same contract.
Yeah, it's all the
Yep.
teacher. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, so now down to teacher assignment changes.
So teacher assignment changes, these are just 2 people moving between positions. I would share Mrs. LaFortune, this is because she's moving into the reading specialist position that was vacated when we added the 3rd administrator at Maple Ave. That was Mrs. Ryu, she went into that position, so this is a secondary move as a function of that.
All right, so we'll need a motion to accept the teacher assignment changes.
So moved.
By Ellen, do I have a second?
Sure.
By Nicole.
We're on a roll here.
Yeah, right? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, student support service nomination.
So the next nomination, this is for a speech and language pathology assistant. So we're very pleased that we were able to find Mary Hassick.
All right,
Move to approve the speech language pathology assistant nomination.
great. Do I have a second? Nicole? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
Look at this.
All right,
And the-
co-curricular.
Yeah, the last 2 I think you could probably do together. So
Yes.
you've got co-curricular sports and co-curricular non-sports. And at this point, I believe this is fully staffed across all athletics. I've not heard, and I'm looking here, we have A and B teams at Mountain View. Wendy or Scott, have you heard that we have any coaching positions that we have not been able to fill? I'm not aware of any at this point.
Okay, move to approve the co-curricular sports nominations
And non-sports.
and non-sport
And non-sports.
nominations as presented.
All right, second by Nicole. All right, does anybody have any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Wow, thank you. You guys have been very busy this summer.
Very busy indeed.
Okay, so other business that may legally come before the meeting, I do have one thing I want to clarify with everyone. Real quick, and then you can. So when we had our retreat, we talked about going paperless. More for policy because we have them come a couple of different times, but then it kind of diverted into the full board meeting. We weren't sure how realistic that was going to be, which is why you have paper. There are board members that don't use their laptop, so it's hard to see stuff on your phone. I know there was talk of a program, but that means we would all have to have access to that program, and in my understanding, you cannot access it on your phone. I know the policies, when we do first read and second and questions, it can change, and it's a lot of paper, but I'm not sure we can do that yet. and we just want to see what the board wants to do, because I know there was a lot of talk at that retreat, and we just want to make sure we're doing what everybody asks.
I feel I need paper for most of it, not everything, but most of it, because I do write on it, and I keep it in a file and refer back kind of thing. I don't have the capacity at home to print off everything.
Right.
So I would
Prefer
paper.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I do as well.
Okay.
I don't want to be looking around for things during a meeting. I
Right.
like to be able to look back at a paper. As you can see, I
Do your notes, I know.
take notes.
Yep.
And then I always do my homework. I always review them. And if I have a computer, then that's much more difficult. So I like having something here that I can look at and check, and then if I need to bring it back and review before the next meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
That would be my.
Make sure.
And I don't
that-
care if everybody else wants it, if.
Well, at this
you
point,
know.
it'd be one way, you
Yeah.
know, and not to say that we couldn't go paperless, but I'm not sure we're there yet.
And
yeah,
if
we'd have to
Denise
figure
would like
out-
me to go in and show me where the stuff is, I would be glad to pull it out, so.
All right, so for now, we'll just continue onward as we're doing unless we come up with a different solution. We just wanted to make sure, because we were kind of confused on how we left it at the retreat. Go ahead.
I don't know how the chair wants to continue with the topic that was raised to us by the parents.
Oh, you're not talking about the other thing. That was, I had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry about the, go ahead.
So.
Are we done with the paperless thing?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to bring up the big elephant in the room, and I just had a simple question.
Okay.
We've heard that there is information that is publicly observable and being potentially available in and at our under high school. Particularly
school.
here, it was MVMS. The simple question is, will that material be taken down and not made available to our students? Simple question. And depend,
I will tell you, I just heard about this.
Understand.
So I'm in no position to tell you where I'm going to find myself on this. So I received, and I wasn't going to share this because the individual who shared that she submitted a right-to-know request, that is not information that I would typically share with the board. I will process and respond to that as I do all other right-to-know requests. So I just heard about this. I received this on Friday. I told the board I was not aware of the bulletin board. So this was not something that I had seen or had known about. So I would ask for maybe a little bit of time to look at this and to evaluate and to respond to it. This isn't anything I even knew about.
totally understand. If it is helpful for you, I will give you what I have briefly opined on, but have opined, not on this particular, but in general, and I would agree that the topic has no place for that age group anywhere in that school. And if school were to start and that material was available or there or observable, it would become another discussion point for me at this board.
Again, I did not know anything about the
I'm
bulletin board.
not blaming
I'd never
anybody,
heard of
I'm
the
just
bulletin
saying if
board.
it's helpful for you to come to that decision, okay? I'm on the camp that it shouldn't be there, period. It has nothing to
Understood.
do with the education.
Understood.
All right.
And I get that this is a topic that clearly the board wants to talk about. I would direct you to policies.
So you want us to, so if you can put down there, if we have to write a frickin' policy, then we'll do it. That's where I'm coming
Well,
from.
I think we have one. She read it to us. One of the speakers.
That was about a flag.
Yeah, that was a
Oh, that
different
was
policy.
specific to that.
Well, just let's be clear here. we do not have a transgender policy.
No.
There is no policy.
I would agree.
So I think, go ahead, Jared. I'll wait.
Different note, same topic. I'd like to thank the chair and commend her on the great job she did with our public comment section.
Thank you.
And making sure that we administered that appropriately. So I know I'm making you blush by saying this.
That was next. She did a great
I have
job.
to say
Yes.
thank you for your hard work on that.
Thank you.
Excellent work.
I appreciate that. The one thing I do not want happening at this board is a riot. I do not want public getting out of control. I don't want our board being attacked, and I don't want us attacking our public speakers. I appreciate you being passionate, but I wish you had been quiet until after, because it riled a lot of people up, and I was trying to get them to leave peacefully, because I knew nothing about this. Brian knew nothing about this. I don't know how many people on the board knew, and our job is to hear and then find out what administration is going to do. Whether we agree with it or not, we need to go through process and policy and figure out what
Give me
to
the
do.
opportunity to know about something.
Right.
Sure. So give me the chance.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, and it was completely blindsided to me. I don't know about anybody else here.
I didn't have a clue.
But they all had a right to speak, and I'm glad they came, and that's what we want. But I want it to be done respectfully without screaming and carrying on and having to have police come. That's not my intention.
And this was respectful.
It was.
They did a good job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So I
Expressing
think
their concern.
we need to figure out what is going to come to us and what we need to do forward, because we don't have policies on some stuff, and you have to figure out what happened to then let us know what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we err on a side of non-confrontation at the moment.
Absolutely.
Before a policy comes in.
Right.
That's what I'm urging.
And I understand that. I want to reiterate to the board that unless we're dealing with a policy issue or a policy violation, this would be something that would fall to the general school administration.
Right.
This is a superintendent issue. This is not a school board issue.
Agreed.
Now, can it become a school board issue? Sure. Could you decide to create a policy to direct administration to do or not do certain things? Of course you should. That's your role. But at this point, this is not a board issue. It's not a board issue. So with all due respect to the 75 people that were here, thank you. I heard you. Now, I need the chance to be able to act upon something that I didn't previously know about.
Did you count
That's
them?
all. Huh?
Did you count them? Were there 75 people?
No, I don't know. I
They
don't
were well
know.
over 50.
Great.
I started counting.
Wow.
They were well over 50.
Yeah, there was people in
And
layers.
again, and I appreciate, and maybe
Absolutely.
the people that were here thought, and I know, and this board has heard public comment, that people think that I am the one that's pushing this particular topic, and that I have been personally accused of indoctrinating children, which is obviously completely false. So I wouldn't want any of those folks to think that it's the superintendent who's saying, teach this methodology. Put this information in front of kids. We have 600 employees across our entities, 600 employees. I'd like to tell you that I know everything that they're all doing. I don't. I don't know every bulletin board we have. I don't know every post that a teacher might make on Schoology. This is a big, massive organization that we do the best we can to understand all the pieces. There's a lot going on here, folks. When I just went through all the hiring, the millions and millions of dollars of projects that we've been doing all summer, we've got a lot going on. I didn't know about a bulletin board.
So
Thank you. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. And all of those folks, any one of them could have called me and said, Brian, did you know about this? And I would have said, I don't.
Or called Mrs. Milligan.
I don't.
Or
You know, let me look into this and I'll get on it. But when I don't know something, when You just need to give people the opportunity to act in good faith and
Yeah.
address an issue that parents have brought up as a concern.
When was
It was probably an open house at the
Yeah,
middle
when was
school
the
last,
open
it
house?
was
What
either
day of-
Thursday
It
or
was last week.
Friday,
It was the
right?
end of
It
last
was
week.
like end of last
So we had a
week.
whole week that you could probably have
No, no,
looked
no,
in?
no.
No, it was like Friday?
Yeah,
It was
this
like
past.
It was like
Oh,
2 days
last
ago.
week. So,
A couple of days
So
ago.
I-
Never mind.
It was,
So-
in fact, it was Friday after the close of business, I believe. So it was after the school had already closed. And again, I don't want to speculate, but we often get right-to-know requests on Friday afternoons because there are timelines associated with them,
Right.
so that I have to respond within a certain number of days.
Well, technically-
I never get them on Mondays.
Technically, the only thing a right-to-know response requires
I know.
is an acknowledgement of the receipt and the availability and the expectation of when it can
I
be
know.
delivered.
I know.
Well, it's not just for you. I'm saying this to
Yeah.
the
Fair
general
enough.
public as well. I deal with this, and I've been dealing with it for many decades.
So we'll let you do your due diligence.
Please.
If
Thank
you
you.
could keep us in the loop on what happens somehow,
Okay.
please.
So we have non-public?
We do have non-public.
Right, we do? Is there
Yes.
any other business that may legally come? No, okay. All right, so we're just doing C?
Just see.
All right, so I need a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-A 32C.
So moved.
By Dan, second by Ellen. I have to do roll call. Retta?
Yes.
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 Shane?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Yes, and yes for me too. All right, so we're gonna go down into the
We are.